Yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to the end of the week. Welcome to Friday, y'all. I'm telling you, you're there, and we're going to get you all the way to go home time. And we got a sound effect for that. Hit it, man. Friday. Yeah. All right, listen, I'm glad of it. I'm sitting here in the studio overdressed for radio, but JP's pushing buttons on the board. Hey, man, how you doing?
Lawyer Phil showed up for the show
Lawyer
today.
Phil showed up. Had to wear my lawyer uniform today.
I can confirm you did some lawyering today.
I did. Lots of lawyering. All the lawyering took place. Yeah, I did. I just, sometimes I get dressed up for lawyering, and then I quickly change into radio clothes.
Well, there is a live stream too, so you're giving the visual audience,
I'm the respectable radio guy.
Yeah,
Not like these other radio guys that sit around in their t-shirts.
Boxers.
Dale Jackson doing it in his pajamas every day or something. Anyway, all right, we got a great show laid on for you. Lots of good stuff. It is Friday. It's the end of the week. That means, somewhere around halfway through hour number 2, we got to step aside from the usual politics and culture wars and do some JP on sports. So we'll have JP on sports coming up halfway through hour number 2. And then Congressman Barry Moore is calling in beginning of hour number 3. He and I are both going to be speaking at a Charlie Kirk Vigil in Decatur on Friday. And so we were texting yesterday, and I said, come on the show and tell us what you got. So he'll be on the show at the beginning of hour number 3. That's Congressman Barry Moore, who, by the way, is also one of the candidates for the U.S. Senate position being vacated by Tommy Tuberville. So stand by for that. And then I still got a triple dipper just filled up with stuff. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right. The Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. So first out the gate, I'm calling it saving kids. Saving kids. Look, there's a real effort out there on the part of what I would call the deviant left to get hold of your kids. We're going to talk about it in detail. And there's some things that I'm going to tell you right now. If you got kids in the room, they might need to hear it, but you might also need to govern a little bit of what I have to say in terms of some of it being pretty shocking. So yeah, saving kids, number 1, triple dipper. Number 2, didn't get to it yesterday, so I got it today. Illegal illegals. I got an update for you on illegal immigration and the effort to get rid of, deal with, expedite the transfer out of these illegal alien criminals, to include a few things that have happened in recent weeks that are pretty awful. Illegal illegals, that's number 2 on the triple dipper. And then number 3, I'm calling it lies and omissions. Listen, I don't know if you saw it or not. There's a story up right now on Fox that the much vaunted AOC took her time on the floor of the House today to excoriate the life of Charlie Kirk. Why would you do that? What's the point? The man is gone. They just can't stand the idea of what he stood for. That's what it is. But there's lies and omissions that are circulating from the left right now about this, and we'll lay some of those out in conjunction with our call with Barry Moore. All right, let me jump on into the Rightside Way opening monologue. I'll remind you guys, as always, that attorney Stan McDonald is indeed the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way. Stan McDonald, 30-year practitioner in the practice of law in North Alabama. And oh, by the way, not only a good attorney, but he's a longtime conservative. I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a few minutes. Okay, let me start off by saying that a disturbing report came out yesterday. A disturbing report that much of the mainstream media is actually choosing to ignore. Auburn University just fired an employee because of his vile and disgusting, literally disgusting, comments and remarks made about Charlie Kirk's murder. The same guy is a drag queen in his off hours, and he's a leader of the LGBTQ group on Auburn's campus. But the facts that got him fired are not those. The facts that got him fired are pretty bad, but it's worse, though, when you consider his history. Because this same guy was a middle school teacher in Auburn just over a year ago, and he was caught on a podcast bragging about how he used his middle school teaching position in order to sort of inject his alternative lifestyle into his kids' lives. You catch that? He loved using his teaching position with impressionable middle school kids as a platform for promoting his sexuality and gender identity. And he had to resign. Had to resign from the middle school, and then Auburn hired him anyway. Go figure. Well, it wasn't so long ago that we had the same story in Huntsville, when a middle school teacher there was caught on video. Remember this? Conducting a drag queen story hour with kids and making lewd comments and suggestive jokes. The same guy was then caught bragging about the same behaviors as the other guy did on a podcast. And y'all, the blowback was intense. He also had to resign. And do you remember back in 2024, just last year, we talked about the progressive agenda at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center Space Camp. The news broke nationwide when it was learned that the transgender lifestyle was being promoted by the Space and Rocket Center, that kids were actually being housed in dormitories that matched their so-called gender identity without their parents being aware. You know, never mind the fact that they have a biological sex that actually makes a difference. Basically, you could send your kid from Kansas to a week of space camp in Alabama and find out later on that your 12-year-old daughter shared a shower with a boy. All the while, the staff of space camp wore rainbow buttons and pink hair, and it was a hot mess, and backlash on that one was pretty huge as well. And then, y'all, there's the online predators, the ones who embed themselves in our kids' lives by invading their video games, their social media, their chat rooms with evil intent. And they are prolific. They are all out there. FBI Director Kash Patel just this week disclosed the extent to which the FBI is actually dealing with groups like one that calls itself 764. 764 is a loosely aligned group of deviants who spend their time hunting out impressionable children online and convincing these precious kids to do all manner of depraved things and even send pictures and video of themselves doing it. Everything from nudity and sex acts to cutting on themselves, hurting the family pets and videoing it, even filming themselves committing suicide. So these twisted individuals can then revel in it, take glee in it, and then share the videos with their cult-like followers and their aberrant viewers. All of this and more as we read about the killer of innocent kids a few weeks ago at a Catholic church in Minneapolis, who spent a great deal of time embedding himself in online chat rooms with others who worshiped mass killers and held them up as idols for themselves to emulate. Look, we got to be aware who has access to our kids. We should care about those who teach our kids and what they teach them. Alabama recently passed a major school choice bill. More so than ever before, parents are going to be given a say-so in the education directions of their kids. And yeah, nationwide, there's a focus, an emphasis, if you will, on asserting that in America, we value our children. And as such, we want what is best for them. And I mean best in every way, which includes wanting the best for them in education, wanting the best for them in culture, wanting the best for them in safety. I mean, as conservatives, like you send your kid to school, right? We want to know that our children are being taught the best possible levels of reading, writing, arithmetic, sciences, technology, history, civics. In essence, we just want our kids to have an actual quality education and be safe and feel valued, to have positive social interactions, to be truly educated, which includes having an outcome-based education that actually rewards success and remediates failure, but stays focused on what's best for the child. Does that sound reasonable? It does, doesn't it? Conservatives actually want our children to be educated. Liberal progressives just want our children. So think back to your school days. I mean, do you remember those times when we were taught to keep secrets from our parents? To literally conspire with our teachers to say or do things that our parents wouldn't like and then not tell our parents? Just to enjoy that salacious nature of having a trusted adult to help us rebel against our own family. You don't remember doing that? Neither do I. None of us do, because it's wrong. And any teacher who did that back in the day would find themselves out on their ear. There was a time when any teacher, any coach, any neighbor, or for that matter, any stranger who tried to do any of what I just described would be run out of town on a rail if they survived long enough to be run out of town. But it's happening every day. Every single day, we're catching more glimpses into the activist factories that some schools have become. Schools where every value and every belief and every patriotic vibe and faith-based position is laid bare and vacated by activists who pose as teachers. Happens every day, and we're beginning to see it more and more. And I'll pause here, though, by the way, let me just say this. I'll pause here and say that I know and I believe that the vast majority of educators are not at all on board with what I just described. They're not. They're patriots like you and me. They have godly influences, and they bring them to bear in their classrooms all over the nation. They have a calling to truly love and educate our kids. But yet I would say this, too many of them are aware of what is happening in the other classrooms next to theirs, but they just don't want to get involved. They don't want to face the shouts and the aspersions. They're afraid of being called racist or homophobic or bigoted. And so too many good teachers and quality adults just stay silent in the face of all the foolishness being perpetrated on kids. We need to know that fellow educators and citizens and parents won't just sit idly by and say nothing in the face of all this woke indoctrination and aberrant behavior. Parents will rally behind a good teacher. They will. Parents will get behind someone who cares for their kids rightfully. They will. Good teachers are everywhere, and there are good role models for kids everywhere. And we need to make sure that we affirm them and lift them up and thank them for what they do. We will get their back. If you have somebody that takes care of kids and does so lovingly and with honesty and integrity and teaches them about patriotism and life, thank them for it, because too many of them don't nowadays. And we as grandparents and parents and concerned citizens need to be keenly aware of the myriad ways that people can also access our kids. Let me ask you this. Do you know your child's password for their social media? Do you limit their access to online chat rooms? Do you know what their friends and associates do with the cameras on their phone? Do you talk to your kids about this stuff and warn them what to look out for? I mean, it's really amazing if you think about it. We will teach kids to look both ways before they cross the street and not even warn them one time about never sending a picture of themselves to a stranger, how to avoid chat rooms, how to stay out of trouble when you're doing your online gaming. And now that I've said all that, let me tell you this. We got to keep up our end of the bargain. You and I, we all believe these things have to be done to take care of our kids. But gone are the days when we can assume somebody else will do it. And gone are the days we can just turn a blind eye. Gone are the days where we can just shrug our shoulders and go, well, it's not my kid, so it's not my fight. There's a world of sickos and progressive liberals who want our kids. And if it's not your kid today, it might be your grandchild tomorrow. Every kid has a target on their back, and every adult is a potential defender of those kids. They should be. So be alert, be aware, be intentional. So yeah, if you come across a good teacher, someone who values children, truly values education, take a stand for them. If a social media post or a direct message or an email or a chat room has content you're concerned about, address it, block it, report it. Don't let your child go there. You wouldn't let someone walk in your house and sleep in your child's room you didn't know, but the online world is just as bad. And too often we don't see how much access people are getting to our kids. We got to stick together on this. You see it, you say it. And we get each other's back, and we never settle for letting progressives or sickos indoctrinate our kids in our schools or access them online or whatever else it may take. These deviants are out there, and they will try to find their way. So you find the good citizens and good role models, the good scout leaders and the good Sunday school teachers, and you thank them. And you stand up with those who will say no to the bullies, and you turn off the social media, and you put a porn blocker on your child's phone. Do it for the kids. Do it for all the kids, because kids are a gift from God, and our job is to be good stewards of what God has given us. Good stewards of what they are now, and good stewards of what they will be. Got to save the kids. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, listen, I spent the first 10 years of my adult life working professionally with kids in both counseling and ministry. And I'll just tell you, it's a passion of mine. And I've seen a lot of things that the world can do to a kid. And I look forward to the day that I can just handle it if I have to, in Jesus' name. We'll be right back. Folks, you're going to enjoy this one. I just had a conversation with Brian Dawson from 1819 News, president and CEO of an up-and-coming company that is making a huge splash in the state of Alabama. But listen, you're going to be amazed by his personal story. Brian Dawson, you talk about rags to riches. You talk about somebody who's been redeemed. You're talking about a guy who is looking at life in prison, who now has an amazing family, an amazing life, an amazing testimony of how the Lord has redeemed him, and who is, oh, by the way, making a huge difference in our state. Stay tuned. Just Right podcast coming up next. Yeah, let's do a show. 1, 2, 3, hey! Brian Dawson, how you doing?
Doing good.
Good. I got notes, dude.
All right.
I'm gonna start with a sort of introduction. All right.
Hit me.
You was born and raised outside the state of Alabama. Spent a lot of your time in Colorado Springs. Am I right?
Yep. And Derby, Kansas. Those are the two places.
Does that make you a carpetbagger if you came from out west?
No, west is not north.
Okay.
So yeah, carpetbaggers only come from the north.
All right. So you're allowed.
Yeah.
You were a white suburban kid.
Correct.
But your parents divorced when you're young. I know that. I can relate to that. But then there's this period of your life. We'll talk about it in detail here in a minute. You've been very candid in some of the other interviews and discussions I've even had with you. Crime, drugs, drinking.
Sure.
And then there became time when you were even involved with drug cartels and other things and spent time in prison.
Yep.
At one point, I know you were facing like just short of 400 years potentially in prison. But then you found Jesus. You found a beautiful woman.
You found purpose. You found parenthood like 7 times.
Correct.
And
It's the number of completion, Phil.
Oh, well, there you
They
go.
say perfection and completion.
Speaking of which, we're going to get to the initials of all your kids' names too, which is very cool. And then now it's radio, media, 1819 News, president and CEO. So let's start. All right, let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
Early childhood, dude. How did you get to where you went?
Yeah. So, interesting thing. I always like to, the more I learn about people and get to know people and everything, I realize who they are, where they're from, who their parents are matters a lot. And I also think, well, I'll just kind of go into that. So, my dad is from West Monroe, Louisiana. He is a swamp redneck. He grew up with Phil Robertson.
Duck Dynasty. Phil
Duck
Robertson.
Dynasty, okay.
Yeah.
Phil was about 7 years my dad's senior, and so Phil was the camp counselor at Camp Chioka in Louisiana. And so, my dad was like 10, and Phil was like 17 at the summer camp or whatever. But my grandma, Memu, as we call her, Betty Dawson, taught Sunday school with Miss Kay for 30 years at Whites Ferry Road Church of Christ in West Monroe, Louisiana. So I say all that because it's neat on one hand that my family is close with their family or whatever, but also to give you, like, everybody knows the Robertsons and the swamp redneck thing, right? Like, they're swamp rednecks with money. But prior to them having money, there was a saying in West Monroe that the only people that were more poor than the Dawsons was the Robertsons. Okay, and the Dawsons was po, like they were super poor. Okay, I would joke and say
They changed that over time.
yeah, so they did. My dad not so much. That's okay though. Went the middle class route, but my dad, swamp redneck from Louisiana. Grew up. I always say back when poor people were skinny, had to hunt for food, garden, like so. That's that side of my family, and then on the other side, there's my mom. My mom. And we'll kind of get into a little bit more of her background later in the story as it's pertinent. But she was the daughter of a state senator in Colorado, Colorado Springs specifically. And so my grandfather was a state senator. He ran for governor. He ended up running for Congress against Joel Heffley in Colorado. That was the only politics I was around for where all that happened before I was born, except for the run for Congress. He has a country club background, right? And so you mix this swamp redneck with this country club, and this is where you get this amazing pedigree that sits before you.
Had this sort of Romeo and Juliet feel to it.
Yeah, I guess so. But that I really do think that plays a lot into who I am and how I go about things, but for better or for worse. But yeah, so they couldn't have been more different, and they got divorced when I was 2, right? Like who didn't see the writing on the wall with that one? So they got divorced when I was 2. Courts put me with my mom. That's kind of the knee-jerk reaction of the court system. At least it was back then. I don't think it's changed that much now. The knee-jerk reaction is give kids to mom. And had they have done any type of due diligence whatsoever and looked into the situation, they would have seen that was not the best place for me. And so when I was 2 years old, boom, I'm now living with my mom, seeing my dad every other weekend. And
where were y'all living then?
This was Colorado Springs. Okay. Yep. And so, my mom, God bless her, I love her. She did the best she could with what she had, right? And so I've worked through a lot of unforgiveness with my mom and with my dad, but just forgiving them and me thinking, oh, I've forgiven them, but it's like, no, really. And then once you've forgiven them, you can actually see the appreciation that they did everything they possibly could. Now that I have kids, I see. But my mom had a very rough childhood, though she was from country club, lineage. She was sexually abused as a child. She, had all kinds of abuse, and just.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. Bunch of y'all are texting in already. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it, call it. It's the same number for both. Give us your input. A bunch of y'all already are. I got to tell you real quick about attorney Stan McDonald. By the way, we got a new phone number for Stan, so I'll give you that too. But yeah, attorney Stan McDonald, law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. But I'm going to tell you right now, he's not just a good attorney with a lot of experience. He's also a longtime conservative who literally has been in the trenches, in the fray, in the mix, on all the policies and the politics that right-side ruffians care about. So that being said, yes, attorney Stan McDonald has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. And oh, by the way, he can stand up for you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say if Stan McDonald's on your side, he can basically just rest assured then that you will have no greater friend, and likewise your adversaries would have no greater foe. So here's his phone number. You ready? Stan McDonald. The law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. The number is 256-533-0202. That's 256-533-0202. Tell him y'all heard about it on Rightside Radio. And no representation made. The quality of legal service and performance greater than anybody else's because his are good. He advertises on Rightside. He's a ruffian. I like it. Okay, so text messages are flowing in. You got some over there on the social media side too. What do you got, dude?
Got David from Bucky's here. Said, Phil, please, the visual of Dale in his pajamas just doesn't go well with me.
Well, I actually heard that Dale sleeps in the nude. So
yeah. We also got here. Jeff on the X stream said, thanks for the conservative message and your service.
Thank you, sir.
And then we also got a quote from my favorite band, so I got to read it. But we got Dennis here. He said, hey, teacher, leave those kids alone. Pink Floyd.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, teacher, leave those kids. How can you eat your meat how can you have your pudding if you don't eat your meat? All right. Listen, I'm going to get me into Pink Floyd now. John from Huntsville checking in on the text line. He says, Phil, spectacular monologue. Also, did you hear the crazy nonsense that David Letterman said in response to Jimmy Kimmel's firing? Yeah. You mean that irrelevant, bearded, former talk show guy, Dave Letterman? Yeah. Anyway, he says, by the way, JP, I hope you fill out your football pickups for tomorrow's games.
Thanks for reminding me. I'll have to do it.
Get on it, dude.
We'll be on a flight right after the show today, so I'll have some time to do it.
That's true. You won't be sitting in Atlanta Hartsfield Airport trying to figure out where life is. Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, I think anyone who takes care of or teaches young children at least to grade 8 should have to pass an FBI background check for criminal psychological screening. I agree with that. I'm fine with that. So there are a lot of jobs in this country that not everyone can do because they're not fit to, and this should be priority 1 for that. Jeff Rowe, good input. And yeah, I would be shocked. You know what? I've never thought about it, but I would be shocked to find out they're not doing background checks on teachers. Aren't they? I think they are.
Obviously, they're not background checking enough. Hey, does your Facebook have conservative messaging? Would you be a threat to the transgender movement? Would you not want to welcome a kid that wants to, change his gender?
Yes.
I think
Would
that's
you keep secrets from the parents if it meant the kid felt better about themselves at school?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you be willing to let them transition at school and not tell mom and dad? Yeah. David at Bucky's again says, another great monologue, Phil. And he says, thank you, sir. He says, as a child, I was taught not to speak to strangers, not to be afraid to tell someone in authority when approached by a stranger. We really got to get back to these simpler days. I agree with that. Amazing audience. I agree with that. All right, listen, we got more of these and we'll jump on in to the Dippers. Hang on. We'll be right back.
And, so she had a lot of trauma in her life that she never dealt with. And so I'm living with her, and the solution to every problem that she has is another man. And so I ended up with like 5 or 6 stepdads. I lost count. Okay. Now I will say, I know there's no way you haven't seen the movie or read the book, Hillbilly Elegy.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that was my life to a T with my mom. That was my life to a T. We watched that movie. And my mother and I were like, this is like maybe 6 months ago, we watched the movie.
Together?
No. Okay. But I mean, I watched it. I was a wreck. My wife's looking at me. My oldest son, who's watched it with us is like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, it was a wreck. And I told my mom about it. My mom watched it. And she's like, oh my gosh. It was like PTSD watching it because it was so on point with that 2 to 10 years with my mom. And I always make the joke, me and JD Vance are the same person, except JD Vance, he got into the Marines and went to Yale, and I got into drugs and went to jail. But other than that, same person. But yeah, and so when I was that went on, watching my mom get drunk, taking pharmaceutical drugs, I watched her get beat by some of the men that she was with. Just not good formative years from 2 to 10, right? And so by the time I'm 10, I get into a big fight with my mom, and she, despite many court battles for my dad to get custody of me that he continued to lose, my mom just let go and said, you can go live with your dad. And so when I was 10, I went and moved with my dad, and he was living in Wichita, Kansas. He worked at Cessna for the bulk of his career in Wichita, Kansas. So
I got to tell you, and sometime I'll tell you my whole story, but I didn't wind up in jail. but I was headed there.
Yeah.
Parents divorced when I was young, lived with my mom, did not respond well to multiple marriages. Mom finally gave me the ultimatum as we had a big blow up. She sent me to live with Dad, who, by the way, was living in London, England, as an Army officer. And so I like to say God had to give me a 3-year timeout away from everything that I was used to for me to find him.
Yeah.
Of course, you had a 384-year timeout coming.
Potentially. Yeah.
So let me ask you, you live with your dad. I researched before I sit down with you, and I'm watching other interviews you've done and stuff. And you said in one case that your dad's level of discipline and household, management was more what you needed, but you still wound up going down some roads.
Sure.
So you were, and I got to say, in going through all the news stories and things, your mugshot came up at some point.
A bunch. Yeah.
And you were just a normal looking high school dude. You didn't have like body piercings and face tats, and you weren't doing gang signs in the mugshot. You just looked like a high school football player, which you were. Am I right?
Yeah.
But you also had this sideline gig of doing things that got you in big trouble.
Yeah. No, I'm an all in guy. Whatever I'm into, I'm all into it, and that's just the way I'm wired, and it was no different than that. And so, going to the structure that my dad provided, but me still falling, I think that was a great tee up. I've never thought about it in those terms, and it actually makes a lot of sense. So, I'm 10. I move in with my dad. He's still not a Christian to this day. So if you're listening, pray for my dad. But he put a roof over my head. He got up every day at 4:30 in the morning and went to work. He showed up to my football games. We ate dinner every night around the table. Okay. He was what he was supposed to be as a father, and he didn't have a father. His dad abandoned them, his siblings. So he never had a dad. And so the gaps that he was filling in were those real basic gaps that he completely lacked, which was the providing, the protecting, those type of things. And so he generationally fixed that, that basic blocking and tackling gap that a father is supposed to provide. But some of the areas where I'd say, and I don't mean this disparagingly, where he fell short, he's not a real good communicator where he can sit down and say, son, let me talk to you about manhood. Son, let me talk like that. Those weren't his things. He showed up and he did what he was supposed to do. And I'm very, very grateful that I had the time with him that I did. It definitely shaped and molded me. But when from 2 to 10, which they call formative years, those are formative years, right?
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the Southeast U.S. of A. Y'all are talking about this show. This show goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call now, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. Just the radio. Then there's all y'all in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, live streaming the show, watching inside video and audio. And oh, by the way, that's on places like X and YouTube and Rumble and Facebook and our website, rightside.media.org. And then all you podcasters who catch it after the fact. Thank you very much. Wherever you catch this show, it means the world to us that you do. You are the reason why we do it. A few more text messages just to stay caught up. Nofre from Lexington. I like saying his name. Nofre boy. Anyway, Nofre from Lexington says, Trump has liberals and Republicans boycotting Disney. What can this man do? What can't this man do? Who's boycotting Disney? What's up with that?
Liberals.
Oh, liberals.
Yeah.
And Republicans.
The Republicans,
because of Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel. But the Republicans were boycotting because obviously they're Disney and they're woke. But now the liberals are boycotting because Jimmy Kimmel got pulled. So now he's just boycotting Disney altogether.
Hey, honey, time to go to Disney. They're making deals and plenty of vacancies. No long lines to wait.
I've seen a couple of liberals post like, hey, Disney, I just canceled my family plan to Disney World this summer. So you just lost out on business from this family of 4. It's like,
okay,
wow, okay.
Less
lines.
Tell Tom with all the kids. Now's the time to take the kids to Disney. Wow. Okay.
Brian from Harvest says, with the resolution they passed this morning, and 58 of the Democrats voted no, and others voted present. How can we look at this in any other way besides they are fine with the political violence as long as it gets us that, as long as it's us that gets taken out? So what Brian's referring to is this morning, the U.S. Congress did pass a resolution honoring the life of Charlie Kirk, and did so basically, I think, naming the day he was killed as Charlie Kirk Day. Am I right in saying that? How do they name it? Do you know?
I think this specific resolution
Honoring the life and legacy of Charlie Kirk.
So the resolution to make his birthday Charlie Kirk Day was unanimously passed by the Senate. So I think this one was just to honor Charlie Kirk by condemning political violence and
It wasn't like a national holiday or anything.
No.
It was an honorary thing, and it was like they have National Pudding Day. They have National Pizza Day. They have all of it. Well, this was going to be a Charlie Kirk recognition. AOC, by the way, used the time on the House floor to smear Charlie Kirk, called it a legacy of bigotry.
Yeah,
because she couldn't contain herself. JP swears she's running for president in 2028.
Axios put up an article today claiming that people around her are certain that she will. I think she will. I don't think she'll win, but I do think she will run.
Well, by then she might be 26 years old.
Yeah, but when she does stuff like this, it's just positioning for that. That's all it is.
Oh boy. Barbara from Athens sends me a text or a link to what is this? Oh, and is there another attempted assassination? See what she sent, man. I can take a look at it on my screen right now.
No, so what this was, I just saw this earlier too. So the guy who attempted to assassinate Justice Kavanaugh,
back in the day,
okay, he's just transitioned to female while in prison.
Oh my God,
he's requested his name to be changed to Sophia.
Sophia.
So
reckon how he chose that.
Just another example of transgender people doing mentally ill things.
Okay. Dave from Capshaw says, regarding your monologue, one bad apple spoils the barrel. It's true. You're right. But at the same time, I will say, and I think he's talking about educators, there are indeed a ton of solid, quality, godly, well-called educators. So you can't broad brush them all like that. But there's some bad ones, man. There are some bad ones in there. Scott from Russellville says, yet another excellent monologue, Brother Phil. Thank you, sir. I look forward to listening every chance I get. Thank you. I appreciate that, and thank you. A few more. Adam from Athens says, as a father of three, it's sad when you can't even let your kids get on Disney without you being there. Yeah, I know. You got to watch it. It's crazy. Joe in Tennessee says, by the way, Jasmine Crockett says, just because you commit a crime doesn't mean you're a criminal. I saw that. Did you see that? Just because you commit a crime doesn't mean you're a criminal. Come on, lady. That's what a criminal is.
I don't even take anything she says seriously at all anymore.
I don't think she takes seriously what she said anymore.
She probably doesn't even remember she said it.
Bob from Decatur says, hey, Phil, I read you were going to what?
He said you're going to speak at the Fredericks.
Yes.
Fredericks Outdoors event
yes.
in Decatur.
Thank you. Now I see what he's saying. Okay. Yeah, there I am. So I am speaking Sunday at the Charlie Kirk Vigil at Fredericks Outdoors. And that'll be in Decatur, Fredericks Outdoors, 3 to 6, I believe.
4 to 7.
4 to 7. Not sure why it's 3 hours, but nonetheless, it's where I'm going to be. And Barry Moore and Brylan Hollyhand. JP says he's going too. But I am one of the speakers for a few minutes. So y'all come on out. Tom with all the kids. He heard me. He says, don't think it didn't cross my mind. Too funny. All right, listen, we're going to jump on into some content here. And I will just go ahead and give you the warning in advance that some of what I'm going to describe is, on the one hand, I say it's adult conversation. On the other, I will say that if there's kids in the room, I get it. Just be aware that I'm gonna give you the straight skinny on some things that are happening. But I want to encourage all of you who have kids in your life. If they're your grandkids, then obviously you don't supersede the parents. But I would encourage you to encourage the parents to tell the kids what to watch out for, knowing full well that some of them are already doing it. I get it. At the same time, if there are kids in your lives, and you're a Sunday school teacher, you're a scout troop leader, you're a mentor of the Big Brothers Big Sisters, or you're a parent, please keep in mind that what I'm about to talk about are things that you can tell a kid what to watch out for, and you may save their life. I'm not being dramatic. You may save their life. You may save their lifestyle. You may save their, well-being. You may also just absolutely save their physical life. So this whole section I've got is called Saving Kids. And it just really galls me. I told you briefly a minute ago, and for those who don't remember, I've got a rather eclectic background. I like to call it my schizophrenic resume, because I'm a firm believer that if God calls me into something, that's where I go. And the first 10 years post-college, and really for several years during the college era, I was a volunteer, but then 10 years post-college, I worked with kids professionally. I was a counselor and therapist in a adolescent treatment center, and then I went from there to, working in full-time ministry with an organization called Young Life, and I saw a lot of stuff that the world can do to a kid, and it can be heartbreaking. Some of y'all have experienced it yourselves, and I get that. It's so important that we recognize who has access to our kids. Now, some of the kids that I worked with who were troubled, they had self-inflicted wounds. You know what I'm saying? They got into a habit or a drug addiction, or they had a behavioral problem, or they just had a mental health issue that needed to be treated, and they had a supportive family. They were troubled. But a lot of kids I saw, their trouble stemmed from things that adults in their lives did or did not do. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's not always the mom and dad. There were times when mom and dad were just jacked up, and that was the problem. And you wonder how the kid was getting by at all. But there were other times when other people wound up having influential moments in that child's life that ruined them, and they were struggling to regain their momentum and their equilibrium. And it was because someone had access to them that should never have had access. And I'm talking about things like screen your babysitters. I'm talking about things like, if you've got the crazy uncle that you don't trust, then follow your gut and don't trust them. I'm talking about things like checking out your online, filters at your home computer. And if the kids have their own iPad, their own smartphone, all that, which a lot of them do, I get it, a computer in their room, even a TV in their room, I encourage you to make sure you know what they see and do at night. If you see a glow coming under the door at 2 a.m, go check and find out why. It is your house. Go find out why. If there are things your kids are chatting on or being a part of, or taking pictures of themselves, sending it to strangers, you've got to intervene. So I mentioned in my monologue about this guy who was hired by Auburn University. All right, the guy's name is Seth McCullough. Seth McCullough goes by the name Colana Blue. He used to be a drag queen. He still is, actually. But the article I've got here comes from July of last year, because this guy, Seth McCullough, was found to be a music teacher at Drake Middle School. And everybody knew he was gay. And that's not the point. That's really not my point at all. My point is that he was gay, but he also did not mind sexualizing children. Audio clips surfaced of him doing podcasts and making guest appearances on shows where he would say things like his role as a teacher gave him access to kids so that he could then become something that he called using it to his advantage. I mean, this is him. He said, I want to be there for the young queer youth of today, what I needed when I was their age, an out, unapologetically proud queer role model, he said in one. He said, I didn't have one of those when I was growing up. How about this? Be a teacher. That's what you're called to do. He said, my husband comes to the school all the time to help with choir concerts and field trips. And I understand that not everybody has that luxury, so I'm going to use it to my advantage. His quote. He went on to say, if you can help the youth, why not do it at school? Well, you see, I have students ask me all the time, how did you know you were gay? Tell me about gender identity. I don't get it. What are my pronouns all about? What should I say? And he says, I can help whoever I want to and give them the advice they need. And then he would say things too like, and when you come out, your mom's going to be upset. So just blank her feelings, you be you. Okay, this guy had access to kids. And he knew why he had access to kids. And he wasn't there to teach music. He was there to teach his lifestyle. And guess what? When 1819 reported on it, he was out. So what happened? He got hired by Auburn University to do what? To come work on campus with slightly older kids. Oh, great. Guess what? He was fired this week. Why? Because the drag queen who goes by the name of Cordana Blue decided he wanted to get out there and say all kinds of nasty, vile things. And when I say nasty and vile, I don't even feel like repeating them on the air about Charlie Kirk's murder. Nasty, vile things that no one says about anybody, much less somebody who's revered by millions and just got murdered. A complete lack of discretion, a complete lack of decorum, a complete lack of professionalism, a complete lack of inhibition. And he's now gone. I have to ask Auburn University again, why did you hire him knowing full well he had just lost a job for showing a complete inability to understand that you just don't take your sexuality into the classroom? That's not what it's for. But he had access to kids. I will also point out, by the way, that if you remember, this happened in Huntsville. I pulled this article, 2022. We talked about it on the show back when it happened. Mountain Gap Middle School. Mountain Gap Middle School. I'm sitting right here. We both know that place.
I went to that school.
Oh, you went to Mountain Gap?
Yeah.
I'd forgotten that.
Yep.
I was thinking you went over to...
I went to Mountain Gap Elementary School.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mountain Gap Middle had a Huntsville drag queen teacher named James Miller. You may remember James Miller. James Miller went by his persona as Majesty Divine. That was his drag queen persona. He was shown on video reading books at a drag queen story hour at a local dog rescue. Children were present, and he was making some very lewd comments, things I'm not going to repeat on the air because I don't feel like it. But I'm not. But the bottom line is, it was not the kind of things that you would think that somebody who works with children professionally would ever find themselves saying in front of children, thinking it was okay to say. But he did. You know why? Because he had a complete inability to understand the limits. And so he went there. And he lost his job, but he had access to kids. And he used to say that he literally loved the fact that he had the ability to work with kids and know full well that he was taking his lifestyle into the classroom. Now, I got more on this. We're going to take a break right now when we come back, but I'm going to start telling you about some stuff that's online, things that not just kids have access to, but things that determine to access your kids. Stand by. We'll be right back.
Formative years are not very formative. You carry baggage. And so I'm with my dad in this structure, carrying that baggage. And so I would get straight A's on the report cards, and I thrived in that structure, and I did good in sports. But underneath, I was angry. And my stepmom would always tell me, she's like, "You're so angry. Why are you so angry?" And she didn't understand. And I was angry at the world, and I was never really comfortable in my own skin. I had a lot of insecurity issues, and the only time I ever felt comfortable in my own skin is when I drank and did drugs. And so I drank and did drugs a lot.
Sort of a self-medicating kind of thing?
I definitely think it was a self-medicating thing. And once I kind of dove into that, I became the life of the party. I created a fake ID. I've always been somewhat, innovative. I learned how to create a fake ID, and then I could go get everybody alcohol. So I was like the coolest guy, in school. I could go get everybody booze and, party. But like everybody else would like party and go home and be fine. I would drink to the point of blacking out and not remember what I did. And that would happen 2 or 3 times a week, right? Like I was like a wild party animal. And then that went on to the point where I started to do drugs. And same thing, whatever I do, I do it all the way. And that happened there.
But you needed to do it. You were selling them too, right?
Yeah. And so how it started is, a little bit of weed, selling a little bit of weed, whatever. And then I would experiment with a little bit of cocaine or methamphetamines or ecstasy or whatever. And in that experimenting phase, I was still living in a suburb of Wichita called Derby, Kansas, with my dad. And
I got siblings, by the way.
So I've got, from my mom, I have a brother who has a different dad.
Okay.
And he's Brad, and he's 2 years, 2 months, 2 days older than me. Anyway, probably not pertinent to the story, but it's interesting. And then I have a stepbrother. When my dad remarried, he remarried a woman, my stepmom, who had a son that was my exact age. So we were in the same schools together growing up.
Okay, wow, yeah.
Yeah. And he was also into partying and doing things, and also found himself in prison at some point in his life. So, I always want to go down rabbit trails, and it's like, I'm not going to rabbit trail, I promise. So that experimenting with some of those more illicit drugs I snuck out one night to do that, and I came home after sneaking out thinking that because what I would do is I would sneak out, my bedroom would be shut, my dad would just get up and go to work. Well, he, for whatever reason that morning, needed something, and so he came in my room, and I wasn't in there. He's like, So I got busted sneaking out, and he took me to get a drug test, and I peed hot for every single thing on the drug test, and he was like, oh, wow. And so we kind of locked horns over that, and he said, you need to quit football and go to rehab, which is a really big deal. My team ended up 6A in Kansas is as big as it gets. They don't have 7A there. Yeah. And we were predicted to be the 6A state champs, or at least going to state.
What position?
I was defensive end, and they were going to move me to nose tackle that year, which was really interesting. I was like 225 and ran a 4.840, but they wanted me inside. Anyway, I won't get into that. But yeah. So that was my I was really, really excited about my senior year, years and years of playing football, wanted to do that. And he's telling me I got to quit to go to rehab, or I can quit football and go live with my mom in Colorado again. And so I packed up all my stuff in my car, and I drove to Colorado. And that was the biggest mistake of my life.
So mine wound up being the most impetuous good decision I ever made, because I got caught sneaking out of the house. So I was drinking and smoking starting in 4th grade.
Yeah.
And mine wasn't self-medicating, I don't think. And it wasn't a lot. Yeah. But it was there. And I was hanging out with a bunch of pot smokers. And mine was more along the lines of, you said I can't, so I'm gonna. Yeah. You said I can't, so this is what I'm gonna do. Sure. And it was just like that live on the edge kind of sense, 4th grade though. Yeah. I mean, who does that at 11 years old? But nonetheless, Mom caught me sneaking out of the house in 7th grade again, and gave me the ultimatum. What do you want to do here? You want to go live with your dad? And I just went, yeah. I mean, that was it. There was no thought. There was no preconceived, I've been looking for this opportunity. There was no, I think this is a good idea. It was just get back at Mom. Yeah. And so I said, yeah. Just the opposite, though. Mine wound up being the best decision I could have made. Totally impetuous. Yeah. But I did it. So you wound up in Colorado, though, brother. Yeah. Colorado weren't good for you.
No, that's 2002. Go back to Colorado. Start, I was already about 3 weeks into my senior year in Kansas in my football season. So I uprooted and moved to Colorado, and then went to school sort of like I didn't hardly ever go to school. By the time I moved in with my mom, it was free reign. I could do whatever I want. But my brother was driving for a drug dealer, and so I would ride around with them and watch him. He'd have, stacks of cash. All the guys wanted to be him. All the girls wanted to be with him. Pounds of drugs, like what's not to love, like this is, kind of the thing I'm in.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, so I got this first dipper I'm doing calling Saving Kids, and I'm going to start telling you about some things that are happening, some arrests being made, some investigations. But whether I get to it now or right after the top of the hour, I got to tell you about one group called 764 that is probably one of the most heinous things I've ever heard of, and I've heard of and been aware of some really awful things happening to kids, but never on such an organized and violent level as what I'm going to describe to you here in a little bit. But the reality is there is a great deal of effort being put in right now by the Trump administration to track down child predators, and I'm so glad. I got right here an article that came off of CBS just about 2 weeks ago. And this was a combination of state and federal. State Attorney General James Uthmire in Florida announced Thursday the arrest of 6 men in North Florida as part of a multi-agency undercover operation aimed at catching online child predators. It was a 3-day operation. They basically laid a sting, and they got these guys who were attempting to make contact with minors for all kinds of sex acts and wrong purposes. And these people, they will travel across state lines, long distances, if they think that they're going to have their moment with a kid. And they'll talk this kid into meeting them somewhere, and they'll befriend them online, and they'll be promising them all kinds of things, and then they'll get them to send pictures, and they'll cultivate this relationship. These stings that happen, we've had on the show, we've had several times. Jared Hudson, who is running for U.S. Senate right now, former Navy SEAL who runs Covenant Rescue Group, an organization that assists in the training and equipping of police forces in human trafficking interdiction. Human trafficking falls in all kinds of categories. You've got labor trafficking, you've got, even almost to the point of slavery trafficking, but then you've got sex trafficking, and especially of minors. And he pointed out that when you catch one, you're catching the time they got caught, but there's multiple others. You may recall, how many did he say, JP? Did you recall the stats? He quoted them off the top of his head, but if you catch him on the one trying to meet a kid, there are probably 15 you didn't catch him on.
I don't remember that stat specifically, but I do remember him talking about that.
Just awful. The bottom line is, though, right now, you just saw 6 of them get busted in one sting operation, just a course of 3 days, just in North Florida. And yet this is happening by the score. Kash Patel was on Capitol Hill this week, and it was quite the show. It was really something. But one of the things he talked about, when he was allowed to talk, by the way, but one of the things he talked about was protecting your kids from these violent predators online who will do all they can to access your kids. And y'all listen, they'll do it in a variety of ways. But when we get back from this break, I'm going to tell you about this one organization that loosely calls itself 764. And it's one of those things that when you read it, you want to believe this can't be real, but yet you know it is. And you want to believe that they're one-offs, and yet they're not. We're talking about people who actually form online watch parties to get things on video and just revel in it, that should never even be allowed in a civil society. In fact, they're not allowed. What am I saying? They're not allowed in a civil society, but they hide in the dark reaches of the internet, and they think they can get away with it. We've got to begin tracking these people down and crushing their souls. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. More to come. We'll be right back.
And here's this guy doing this. And so I kind of went to work for him, selling a little bit of weed. And then I started getting into cocaine. Cocaine's expensive. In order to do cocaine, you have to sell cocaine. And I always say, when I tell my story, the same thing that makes me good at what I do for a living now, which is sales, networking, and persuasion, it's the same skill set I was using then, the exact same thing. And so I went in a very short amount of time from selling, little bits of marijuana to next, I'm selling cocaine, and next, I'm selling lots of cocaine. And in a period of 5 years, I racked up 6 felonies, and all of it was drug or stealing things to buy drugs or getting in a high-speed chase with the cops or whatever. But I, went from selling little bits of marijuana to the point where I was pushing large amounts of cocaine and methamphetamines for cartels in Colorado Springs.
That's before it was all legal out in Colorado.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now they let you take over apartment complexes.
Yeah, exactly. Now you can just bring your gang and have at it.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So, and going through getting ready to sit down with you today, and I've heard your story before,
mm-hmm.
but I've never heard all of your story before.
Sure.
But you didn't just go to prison. You were on the run for a while, and
Sure.
then they caught you swinging on a rope out the window trying to get away from a drug bust.
Yeah.
And I am of the understanding that at some point, Dog the Bounty Hunter was offered the opportunity to track you down, and he declined.
Yes, and I don't think he declined. I don't think he, based off of, so I'll just tell the story. That's
You
what
have
we
to
do.
now
That's
that
what we
I've
do.
asked
We have to
about
tell
it.
stories. Yeah. So here I am. I've now racked up 6 felonies. That 6th felony was the doozy. Okay. And the 6th felony was, I was already out on bond. I was already on probation, and I'd been up for 3 or 4 days. Found out one of these guys who had informed the cops about some legal activity that I was involved with, found out that he had just come into some money, and he owed me money, and he also narked on me, right? And so in that world, you don't do that. Those are the rules, okay? You don't do that. If you want to play in this society, you don't do that. Now, a lot of people did, but there was an enforcement mechanism called me, okay? And if you're going to do that to me, I'm going to find you, and I'm going to hurt you. That was the way it worked. And he wasn't the only one that I did that to, but he was the one that ended up telling the cops again. So I went to his house. I'd been up for 3 days, strung out on meth, pound on his door. He answers the door. I said, he's like, hey, man, what's going on? I just immediately said, why'd you tell on me? And I didn't tell on you. I walked into his house, pushed him. Why'd you tell on me? I didn't tell on you. And I just started to beat him relentlessly. And the guy that I was with, so the way that it reads in the charges, and it's because they only wanted me to go down. They didn't care about the other guy that was with me. I was their target, okay, for the cops, law enforcement. I was the one running all these drug rings and theft rings and motorcycle theft rings and all this stuff. So they were after me, and I wasn't going to tell on the guy that was with me. But this is what actually happened versus what if you read the articles online and the charges and stuff. I was tasing him and beating him and tasing him with a taser and beating him, trying to get him to admit that he told on me. Well, the guy that was with me had a blackjack, which is like it's not makeshift, like you can buy them. Yeah. It's got like a mechanical spring inside of it with a heavy piece of lead with leather wrapped around it. Yeah. And he hit him square in the forehead with it. Boom, his head explodes. Blood goes everywhere. Was not the intention of that visit, okay? My intention, I actually was friends with the guy and liked the guy, but he had broken the rules. And so I was in there to make sure that he understood that you don't do this. The guy I was with cracked his head open, blood went everywhere. And I'm like, well, at this point we're done. Okay. Like this is over. And after he got hit in the head with that, he admitted that he told on me. That happened. But that, again, that was not the intention of this meeting was to go that serious and that far, but it did. And once it did, I just started grabbing computers and anything that was of value. I told his brother, I said, look, if you guys don't pay us, pay me the money that you owe me, I'm going to be back and that's going to be you. And I walked out. And so they hit me with attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and extortion. That night I got arrested again.
That's go-away charges right there.
Those are go-away charges, yeah, for a long time. And it was my 6th felony, right? So my 6th time I've been arrested and charged in separate cases. And so I got arrested that night. I went to court, basically, and they dropped the attempted murder down to first degree because it didn't fit. And so my arraignment, I don't know what they call it. You're a lawyer. I'm not. Although after being in prison for a little while, you actually kind of turn into one. But they dropped it to first degree assault. And so I was charged with first degree assault, aggravated robbery, and extortion, and a slew of other things. But those were the heaters. And so I'm in there for 2 weeks, and I get bonded out again. And so now I'm out on several $100,000. No, I think it was like $135,000 worth of bonds, if I remember correctly.
Who posted bond?
There's so many rabbit trails I could go all the way down. I just don't know how interesting they are. There's this girl, I think her name was Lisa, that she was just infatuated with me and thought the world of me. And she went and used a credit card to buy a bunch of Xbox 360s that were out at the time, and then sold them and got the money to bond me out.
No kidding.
No one's ever got that story, Phil. You're the first that got that story. That asked that question. There you go. But yeah, I ended up bonding out and knew immediately that if I go to court, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. So I'm not going to court, which now makes me a fugitive because I missed my court date, right? I'm on the run. And the plan was, I had a friend, Spider. He and I were supposed to, and Spider's a very bad dude, like very, very bad, Hispanic guy who was part of the Sereno gang. And we were supposed to go down to California with his people and then go into Mexico. That's what they do on the movies. We felt like it was a good idea. Only problem is we never got around to doing it. And so I ended up on a number of occasions, the cops ended up finding where I was, but they didn't have a warrant and they weren't sure. And so there's a couple different ways that I was able to get away when I was on the run. Yeah. And that infuriated them. Okay.
This is how long? Like several weeks?
Yeah, it was about 2 or 3 weeks. Yep. And so you had, at the time, there was Officer Mork and Officer Gold-Branson, which were with Colorado Springs Police Department. But then you had Sergeant O'Driscoll, who was the head of the Fugitive Task Force and Crime Prevention Unit.
You still remember their names?
Yes, I do. And there's a story in that too. This would have been 2007. Oh. Yeah, and so Sergeant O'Driscoll and his team, not only was he on the Fugitive Task Force, he was part of the Crime Prevention Unit. So even before I was a fugitive, both Mork and Gold-Branson and Sergeant O'Driscoll and his team, they were dedicated to bringing me in and taking me down. Okay. Because of, the threat that I posed in running these crime rings or whatever. And, but the Crime Prevention Unit and Fugitive Task Force, it was ran by Sergeant O'Driscoll. They ended up, they have like unlimited budget, work with the feds, all this other stuff. And so they were on me. And so I got away a couple times, and finally June 19th, 2007, I am in what we deemed my safe house, and Spider had given me a nylon rappelling rope to tie to the bottom of this 70s retro recliner. And he's like, if you got to get out, you go, because the front door is, there's a hallway in these apartments, and then you go from the hallway into the apartment, and the only way out would be
Feds, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, let me go down this road that I've been on with you for the last little while as we close out this segment and talk about an organization. I say an organization, they are, but they're not. They're like, they don't have any brick and mortar. They don't have, any signage on the streets that we know of. They don't have bank accounts per se, but they do. But they're real and they're out there. I'm talking about saving kids. I'm talking about saving kids from some of what I'm about to describe to you. And let me just go ahead and say that some of what I'm going to describe is disturbing. It's sick. It's depraved. But it's also happening all the time. It's happening in real time. It's probably happening right now as I'm speaking. So Wednesday of this week, Kash Patel, director of the FBI, appeared before the House Judiciary Committee. And once you got through all of the sound bites that the Kabuki theater, the Democrats wanted to portray him as some kind of, heinous individual who's running a jackbooted organization, it was ridiculous. But when he was allowed to actually give testimony, one of the things he said was the FBI is working to combat online threats against Americans as one of their major projects. And he says that children are the main targets of these dangerous predators and destructive online platforms. And it's true. And he talked about the fact that the alleged murderers of Charlie Kirk and United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson were both prime examples of what happens when you radicalize online. Kash Patel also went on to talk about what he referred to as a nihilist extremist group called 764. A nihilist extremist group. Extremists, we understand what that means. If you're not familiar with nihilism or nihilists, a nihilism is the rejection of all religious and moral principles. It's the belief that life is meaningless, that anything goes. It does away with skepticism. It says that anything is possible because you just want it that way. Nihilism is like the rejection of any and all morality. Well, this group called 764 started on Discord years ago, and it became a worldwide phenomenon. Kash Patel's own words are, it's deeply disturbing, but it's also critically important to understand what's out there. They target vulnerable kids, he says. They coerce victims and they recruit others, often resulting in horrible cases of abuse. What happens, y'all, is these people get together in their online forums calling themselves 764, and it's like a trophy to them. Whoever can get the next worst thing for a kid to do and give them proof of it is considered the next trophy. And then the bigger the more heinous the moment, the more awful the video, the more dangerous or dark the thing is that's filmed, the higher their profile goes in the 764 network, because they're getting in the best stuff. Kash Patel says, we've opened hundreds of cases around the country. Our field offices are all now fully engaged. He points out, he says, 764 is a network of nihilistic, violent extremists who engage in criminal conduct in the U.S. They seek to destroy civilized society through corruption and exploitation of vulnerable populations, often minors. Their goals include things like social unrest, downfall of the current world order. That's what they talk about. They love that kind of stuff. Why should parents be concerned? Because things happen constantly. Things like, he said just the other day, we stopped an individual in the 764 network who wanted to conspire to kill an adolescent girl because she wasn't doing everything he wanted, and he was going to film it. They use online gaming platforms like X and Roblox and Discord. So if your kids are on X or Roblox or Discord, go check once in a while. Get their login. See what they're doing. It's okay to do that. I want to encourage you to do that. They may go, Mom, Dad, you're invading my privacy. Yes, actually, I am. You know why? Because I love you. And because there's bad people out there. I wouldn't let you go walk downtown on a dark street by yourself. So why would I let you walk the dark side of the internet by yourself? Think about it that way. That's what you have to think. The online world is just as real sometimes and just as dangerous as letting your kid walk the darkest alleys of the worst parts of the biggest cities in the nation by themselves. That's what it's like. Would you turn your kid out in the dark at night and say, go walk down that alley where the drug addicts hang out? No, you wouldn't. But they use these things like X, Roblox, and Discord, and they do things like befriending teenagers. And get this, and here's where it gets awful. I'm just telling you. They coerce them, they cultivate them, and they con them. And sometimes they even blackmail them, because once you've sent the nude photo, if you don't send us something else, we're going to tell your parents. We're going to publish it to your school. We're going to get it out there. Everybody's going to know. So I'll do the next thing. Maybe you won't do more. And the next thing you know, it gets worse. And then it comes into graphic pornography. And then they get them to do things like harm themselves, hurt the family pets, and film it while they do. Even to the point that there have been cases where they've encouraged kids who are already feeling rejected, go ahead and commit suicide, but film it because we want to see it happen. And these online predators, this is heavy stuff. These online predators, calling themselves 764, they also demand the victim send photos. And the shocking content is so awful, but yet they share it. And some of them do what they call watch parties. They'll get one set up. They're going to do it at a certain time. Everybody logs in like a giant Zoom call, and they watch it in real time. And they crow about it, and they cheer, and they give the next trophy to the next one. And they torment the victims online. Right now, Kash Patel says there's over 250 cases nationwide of 764 with kids as victims as young as 9 years old that are being investigated. 250. There's only 50 states. That's several per state, technically. We got here's a few cases. One 764 devotee was being encouraged to do bomb threats, and when they went to the house, they found pornographic photos of the child and photos depicting self-mutilation and photos of her paying homage to 764. You even have some of them where they get them to do, what do they call it? Some kind of sickness where they actually carve the online name of the 764 sponsor into their body, and that's a trophy. Let me give you a few more examples. You ready for this? Brace yourselves. Over 15 people have been arrested the last couple of years for child pornography and weapons charges related to 764. One of those cases was a 24-year-old Arkansas man named Jairo Tenehiro. He was going to murder a 14-year-old girl who was resisting his demands. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy and child pornography. He said he believed if he could murder her and video it, it would raise his stature in 764. Another case, a 19-year-old guy named Jack Rocker in Tampa had a collection of more than 8,300 videos and images that the Justice Department calls some of the most horrific, evil content they've ever found on the internet. He pleaded guilty to child sex abuse, got 7 years in prison. While he was collecting his collection, by the way, he had other trophies of kids self-mutilating, carving his name. They call it fan signing. That's what it was, fan signing, carving his name into their bodies. How about this one? The Justice Department just recently arrested a 20-year-old North Carolina man named Prasan Nepal. He was operating an elite online club. He'll pay to be a part of it, I guess, dedicated to promoting 764, extorting young victims, and producing horrific content. He's about to be arraigned. It goes on and on. I could keep reading these, but y'all, I'm telling you, these things are happening, and they're happening on a daily basis. You got to know who has access to your kids. So every once in a while, I use this platform so we can laugh together. Every once in a while, I use this platform so we can poke fun, or we can actually point out, or we can call for change. I'm using it today because Kash Patel himself got up there and said the Justice Department is seeking to do all it can right now to interdict these guys before they have a chance to do something to your kids. But I'm telling you, it's going to take us doing it too. It's going to take us knowing who has access. It's going to take us being willing to love them enough to make them mad at us when we invade their privacy to find out who they're chatting with online. It's going to be you once in a while looking at their phone to make sure they haven't sent pictures of themselves to somebody. It's going to be you checking their emails and putting filters on and being that kind of parent. Yes, being that kind of parent, being that grandparent, being that adult mentor, being that somebody who will say something in their life that might save them from some of what I just described. I didn't even read it all. I didn't want to. But I'm telling you, if you want to read this, go to RedState, redstate.com. Redstate.com, and one of the stories I have, it actually came from ABC News. And they're all dated this week. And this organization's real. It's out there. And Roblox and Discord are both being sued because they do nothing to try and prevent these groups from happening. They do nothing to try and prevent their platform from hosting child pornography and this horrific content, this violent content, this nihilistic content. So
Well, Discord is owned by a very leftist group. I've heard some rumors that some of the owners may be transgender themselves or have shown to be pro transgenderism. So it's almost like a sixth sense. I feel like unfortunately they may be trying to protect their own. Don't demonize this community.
wow.
So I think that plays a part into it as well. Unfortunately.
Well, don't take the law into your own hands. I have to say that. But at the same time, engage the law in this process. There are people that will help. And if you find something, you see something, you say something. Don't let your child be the victim that never has someone stand up for them when the time comes. And if you can interdict it before it happens, all the better. All the better. Having worked with messed up kids, I will just tell you that the mental and emotional scars sometimes heal a lot slower than the physical. Oh, God, I need a shower. That's enough of that. We'll take a break. We'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Down the window, out the window and down on the ground, and it's third story. And I'm like, I'm never going to use that. That's crazy, but I did. Every 18 inches, I tied a double knot, so I could climb like that. And, I woke up June 19th, 2007, not thinking anything, just another day of being on the run. And I was in my living room.
One of your interviews, you said you woke up at 3 p.m.
Yeah, it was that afternoon. And it was that afternoon. I was, again, smoking weed, doing drugs. And, your circadian rhythm gets a little off in that situation. And so woke up that afternoon. It's the weird thing that you remember. I was cooking bratwurst and watching the Chappelle Show. And I looked out the window, and the way that it's set up, there's an apartment building here. And every year I go to Colorado Springs and I take my family. And this year I took my 15-year-old son, and he's heard me tell this story a million times. And I'm like, here's the bill. He's like, this is just like the building you said. I said, yeah, no, it's because it's where it happened. Okay, like I'm telling you. And we go and we look, and there's an apartment building right here. This is the apartment building I'm in. And I saw the front end of a cop car sticking out. And I knew, okay, they're here. They're here. And so I kind of frantically, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? Well, then all of a sudden I hear boom, boom, boom. Colorado Springs police open up. They kick in the door. And I look, it wasn't my door. So I said, they don't know which apartment I'm in. They're kicking in every single door in the apartment on the third floor. All they knew is I was on the third floor. And so you've been in Afghanistan and Iraq. They're clearing rooms as though this was Afghanistan trying to find me, okay, in an apartment complex.
Yeah.
Boom, okay. I'm like, okay, well, I look at the rope and this is my only option. And so I kick the screen out, throw my backpack out with all my stuff. And the only piece of furniture in the whole place was the TV and the retro recliner. Okay, that was it. And so I wrap the rope around my hand and I jump, boom, and it sticks exactly how it's supposed to. It's, wedged in the window and I'm hanging there. Well, what I didn't know in that back parking lot, there was a surveillance van.
Oh, yeah.
That blends in with the rest of you wouldn't have known it was a cop car or whatever. It was a surveillance van. And they called it in. Someone's trying to jump out the window. I think we got our guy. And then 50 or 60 cops, they weren't going to miss me again, come swarming from the outside. Like you couldn't see them because they were right here.
So the jig was up at that point.
The jig was up. Yeah, the gun's drawn, get on the ground as though I had another option. Gravity necessitated that down was the direction I was going to go. And so I unwrapped my hand, fell, and hit the ground. Thankfully, didn't break anything. They put their knee in my back, cuffed me, put me in the back of the cop car, and that was it, June 19th, 2007.
So I'm fascinated by two things in the story.
Sure.
One is you still remember the cops' names.
There's a story for why, but go ahead.
Well, and then I may get back to that story.
Yeah.
But the other is you take your kids and you show them exactly where this happened.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a lot into, you're obviously a different person today.
Sure.
I know the guy who did those things, but I don't know the guy who did those things. Sure. Because you're a different person. But that being said, you're pretty transparent with, and you have 7 kids, by the way.
Yeah.
You're a prolific breeder,
yes.
but nonetheless, you've got a beautiful family, 7 kids, but you're telling them what's happened in your life.
Mm-hmm.
What can I ask you real quick? What's their response when they hear about Dad before they knew Dad?
It's a great platform to share the gospel with your kids, right? But the older ones, it's a warning. Proverbs talks about the fool. Dad was a fool, right? I was the epitome of the fool, and in Proverbs and really throughout the scriptures, it talks about a fool. And I didn't seek wise counsel. I didn't receive instruction. I didn't receive discipline. I didn't any of those things. I rejected all of it, and this is where I ended up. And so I don't think it's set. So I've got a 15-year-old, got a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old. Okay. The 15-year-old, the 10-year-old, the 9-year-old are the ones that really wrap their minds around what I'm talking about when I talk about being in prison and, you know, cops chasing me and that kind of stuff. The rest of the ones are younger, and they're just like, wow, Dad, you used to be bad, but now you're good. You know, like they don't have any, but it will eventually form like their understanding. And it's something that I want them to always know. And the thing I always point them to is like, one, don't be the fool, receive instruction, receive wise counsel, obey God and obey your parents. But also life isn't perfect. And if you stray, you can never stray so far that God can't get you. Right. And if God saved me, he can save anybody. And that's not cliche. It's literally, let me tell you about something. But again, specifically my 15-year-old, I drive him all around Colorado Springs. There's not a corner I didn't commit a felony in that city. Okay. And I drive him and I'm like, I did this here. I did this here. I did this here. I did this here. Like, this is who I was. You need to know and understand that, right? And so,
Proverbs 19, raise up a child the way they should.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades, y'all. Hey, by the way, kind of a wrap up to that topic I just did there on saving kids and about, you know, protecting them from online predators and all that kind of stuff. One of the other things is sometimes it's not purely the predators, like there's somebody talking to your kid, but there's also times when it's content that your kids stumble on, and it can be extremely disturbing or addictive because the brain sees things like pornography. And oftentimes you've heard of porn addiction. It's real. And so if you remember, one of the things that we had advocated for the last 2 legislative sessions in Alabama, 2 years in a row, we had a bill that should have passed because it's low hanging fruit, y'all. It is not hard. It turns out that every smartphone is made with a built-in porn filter. And all you have to do is turn it on. And all the bill said was, hey, in Alabama, when you buy a cell phone, it will be turned on. Not that you can't go home and turn it off on your own if you want to. Not that you can't, you know, change things in your phone settings if you want to. Just that when they activate your new phone for you at the phone store, that it's going to be given to you and the porn filter will be turned on. Why? To protect kids from stumbling across stuff. And I will just tell you that, and it wasn't on a phone, it was on a computer, but my daughter was literally, when she was in middle school, was doing a school report, and she had to do it on the White House. And I'm not going to say the name of the website, but the bottom line is, if you type in the wrong thing when you're looking for the White House, you come to an adult website. And they knew exactly what they were doing when they named it that. They knew exactly what they were doing. And she stumbled on it, and it just was just, you know, traumatized her. And it was infuriating to me that there we were, the kind of family trying to sort of, you know, make sure that the safeguards are in place, and that, you know, we don't have this unfettered access to stuff. And yet something as simple as trying to do a report on the White House caused my middle school daughter to stumble on a website she didn't mean to. Well, wouldn't you love to know you could prevent some of that? I would just encourage you to think, first of all, hey, next session, let's encourage our state legislators to get off their keisters and pass the freaking bill. It's not hard. It's low-hanging fruit. The only reason why they didn't is because the big porn companies have lobbyists who say, you know, you don't have to do that. They can turn it on themselves if they want to. Oh, okay. No, you're there for the kids, not for the porn companies. And then the phone companies, Verizon, places like that, they were like, well, we just don't know if we, you know, Apple was like, oh, we don't know if we want to have that turned on. Why do you have it built in then? Well, for the option. Okay, so the next thing I would say is take the option yourself, turn it on, and maybe one day we can get that law actually passed. It's not hard. Other states have already done it. So there's that. I'll grab a few text messages, and you had something on your side too. What'd you have over there, buddy, on social media?
Oh, we got Paul from Decatur on the YouTube saying, hey, Colonel, Paul in Decatur.
Yeah.
Heard you were coming to Decatur this weekend.
I am.
If true, when and where? I'd like to meet you if possible.
Frederick's Outdoors, Sunday afternoon from 4 to 7. It is the Charlie Kirk prayer vigil. Frederick's Outdoors is hosting it in the space, and I will be there. Brylan Hollyhand is speaking. Congressman Barry Moore is speaking, who will be on the show here in a little while. But yeah, that's where we're going to be, and look forward to it. And come on out and let's spend a few minutes celebrating the kind of things that Charlie Kirk stood for, and then spend some time praying together. So yes, that's where I will be on Sunday afternoon. Absolutely. Joe in Tennessee said all 3 indicators of the stock market are up. Okay, good. Thank you for telling me, Joe. Appreciate it. Is there something else I should see here? Oh, he said, for those listening in Rio Linda, it's called winning. What? That's an old Rush Limbaugh line, I'm pretty sure. The 764 bunch sounds like a Democrat version of Jackass. People got to take the tack of my house, my kids. Liberals are the present day Antichrist. Well, I'm not sure that I would even call these liberals. They are just nihilist, extremist sickos.
Yep.
There are some progressives who believe they should have the right to do the kind of things they want to do. Not with my kids, they don't. Not with our kids. Brian from Athens says, just remember, you can always call 811 before you dig. What? Did he send that to us? Brian from Athens, did you mean to send that to us?
I think he did. I'm not sure what the 811. 811. I'm not sure. Oh, maybe not. No, it's not.
I know exactly why he said it now.
It is the one call utility locating services before digging.
You know what he's saying?
What?
Before you bury their bodies in your backyard, make sure you call 811 before you dig.
Yeah. Okay.
Now I get it. Brian, please. Marshall from Dubai says,
we'll careful reading that one on the air.
Oh, okay. Then I will, I'll wait and read it off the air. Okay. Thank you very much. Shag Nasty, the atheist, says, can't wait to lose all my civil liberties so no one sees things by accident. Yeah. Well, Shag, you know what? Apparently you care more about your prurient lifestyle than you do about kids, but then we've come to expect that. All right. I will get that long text from Marshall here in a moment. The bottom line is, you guys, kids are a gift from God. They really are. And we are called to be good stewards. And I think there are some things that future generations will look back on us and judge, and rightfully so. And I've said before that one of the questions that a future generation is going to look back on us and judge us on is, what did we do with the kids? Where did the 300,000 missing kids go during the Biden administration that came across the border by themselves? What happened with the idea of, kids who were, allegedly transgender, having surgical procedures and medications put in their bodies to alter them forever and ruin their lives? And what did you do to try and prevent predators like the 764 group and others from having access to your kids? Future generations are going to look back and go, boy, they were just like throwing kids to the altar of Baal. Let's don't be that group. Let's don't. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Coming up next, we got to shift gears. We're going to shift gears. We're going to clean things up for a bit. JP on Sports. We'll be right back.
Yep.
When they get old, they won't depart from it.
Yep.
All right, brother. So you, the jig was up. They got you. The officers whose names you still recall were a part of the task force that brought you in, and you're staring at 6 felonies prior before you even got to this point, and now you've got this stack of felonies, and you're looking at 384 years potentially.
Sure.
So you're looking at life in prison at that point.
Correct. Yeah.
But you negotiated.
Yeah.
Did you negotiate for yourself, or did your lawyer do a good job?
It's a mix, but there's a bunch between that. But yeah, it gets into mediation. But there was 9 months between then, and in those 9 months, they take me to county jail. I'm facing 384 years in prison. At least that's how my public defender described it, because how it works, and the numbers are shaky in my head, but I have to do the math. But either way, each charge that I was charged with gets doubled because I was on probation and on bond, so they can double it, so they enhance it. Yeah. And then they times it. They can times it by 4 because it's the habitual criminal. Yeah. Right. And so I can break it all down with math or whatever, but the habitual criminal. So if you have 3 felonies, they call that, I'm not going to say what they call it. It's the B word, the little B word. And if it's 4 or more, they quadruple your sentence, and they call that the big B word. Okay. Habitual. Anyway. So I was at 6, so I'm times 4. And then, so they stack and then they times it by 4, and then that's where that comes from.
This is state, not federal, right?
State, Colorado State. Yep. Colorado State prison.
It didn't wind up being 384 years, but you still got a pretty stiff sentence.
Got a pretty stiff sentence, and the transformation really began in county jail. So I was in county jail for 9 months, basically holding out, and that's part of your negotiations in county jail. I was like, well, I'll just sit here until you bring me a deal that I want, right? And they'll only do that for so long. But it is, some people just want to get in there and they plea and they go to prison, but I was gonna, bide my time or whatever. Well, I'm now in county jail thinking I'm gonna go do the rest of my life in prison. That's how I'm seeing this. And so I'm in there thinking I have to create this reputation of being a bad dude, so when I get to prison, people won't mess with me. And so I do, and I'm hanging out with all the wrong people in there. I catch one assault case. They put me in the hole, then send me to another unit. I'm there for a little bit. They bring in another guy that had told on one of my friends. And I had to go beat him up really, really bad. Caught another assault case. So I caught 2 assault cases in county jail. So on top of all my other stuff, I caught 2 more assault cases. They were misdemeanor assaults, but they're still assault cases. And they put me in administrative segregation after that. So they're like, okay, you don't play nice with others.
That's solitary, basically,
solitary,
right?
Correct. Exactly what it is. Yep. Solitary confinement. You're in a cell by yourself for 23 hours a day. You get an hour out to make a phone call and take a shower, maybe do some push-ups or whatever, and you go back to your cell. That's what you get. And I was in there for about 4 months, okay? And so it was 9 months total, 5 months out, 4 months in ADSEG or solitary. And in that stay in solitary, God began to open my eyes. I don't believe he saved me yet, but he opened my eyes to the fact it was my fault that I was in there. And this is huge. I was just reading a Rick Burgess's new book last night because I'm going to interview him later today. But that was one of the chapters when it talks about just rugged accountability. Like you have to take accountability for your actions if you're ever going to repent. And this was the beginning of me realizing, because up to that point, I blame my mom for my circumstances. I blame my dad. I blame the judge. I blame the cops. Da 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 da.
No more victim.
Exactly. And but what was wild though, I really believed I was a victim. Like I wasn't just saying that to get out of trouble. I really believed it, which is weird. But God, in his mercy, opened my eyes like, no, dummy, this is your fault. Sure, does your mom and your dad play a role? And oh, yeah. But your choices got you here. They didn't beat that guy up. They didn't jump out the window. They didn't, sell drugs. They didn't do those things. You did those things. Yeah. And so when I realized that my bad choices created the bad circumstances, that was extremely liberating, because what it meant is that I was free to make good choices that would then create good circumstances. And it was like this epiphany that went off in my brain.
To Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Like covering down on some major ground across the Southeast US of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This one, it goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga, Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains called Auburn. Straight across the line to what we now call, once again, Fort Benning. Big old patches of North Georgia, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just radio. And then all you guys that catch it online and X and YouTube and Rumble and Facebook and all those places that we live stream the show every single day. And then you podcasters that catch it after the fact. The bottom line is what I'm saying is we see it, we know it, we recognize it, we thank you. You are the reason why we do what we do. All right, listen, we're going to switch gears. I love it when we have to get away from a serious topic and head to something else that has good content, but it just feels a little bit lighter. You know what we're going to do right now? We're going to go to some JP on sports. 2 rounds. First round, very easy, the 3 and out. Top 3 stories. What does he see? Next round is called the 2-minute warning. 2 minutes with a timer and a buzzer on each story. He's also got the best sound effect in all of Rightside Radiodom, courtesy of girls at Auburn. Hit it. Nice. Take it away, buddy. First, the 3 and out. What do you got?
Well, we're rolling into week 4 of college football. We got some great games this week. We have some in-state rivalries this week. But first, before we get to those, Auburn will be going to Oklahoma, which is going to be Auburn's biggest test yet of the season, on the road at Norman. This Jackson Arnold coming back to his old team. So there's a little bit of a backstory there as well. Auburn's going to be going up against a great defense. Normally, the Venables team is going to have a great defense. So this is going to be, like I said, Auburn's biggest test so far on the road. 2:30 game. So this will be the SEC primetime game this week. We'll see if Auburn's offense can get going and counter that great defense from Oklahoma. Also, we got Tennessee bouncing back after that brutal. Man, did you watch that Tennessee-Georgia game this past weekend? Man,
I did not.
It was brutal for the Volunteers.
I know of it, but I didn't watch it.
I would say I feel bad, but it's Tennessee, so but they did lose to Georgia in an overtime game at home. They had a great chance to win from a 40-yard field goal, and the kicker pushed it way right, and Georgia ended up winning in overtime. So they now get a cupcake this week to bounce back. They get UAB at home. Sorry to UAB, but
Go
also,
Blazers!
Like I said, we have some in-state rivalries this week. We got Florida at Miami, which is a big rivalry there. We also get Oregon versus Oregon State this weekend, which was called the Civil War, which is one of the best nicknames of a rivalry, the Civil War. And every time I talk about this, I talked about this last year on Off the Bench too. What a travesty that woke took away the Civil War rivalry.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So apparently they took it away in 2020 because it's its connection to the historical Civil War and a national movement to change names associated with slavery and racism. Which side did Oregon fight on in the Civil War again?
I'm pretty sure that's not even what it was named for.
Yeah, this was not like the Battle of the Confederacy or something like that. This was just the Civil War because it's two teams in the same state, and it's a fun rivalry nickname. And like I said, this is a Pacific Northwest teams. Both teams are from the Pacific Northwest. So I may be making too much of a deal out of this,
No,
but
not.
it's so funny.
You're not at all.
It's so annoying to me. The Civil War was so fun to have a rivalry nickname, but nonetheless, we still get Oregon State. This should be a easy Oregon win, as Oregon is the 6th ranked team in the nation, and Oregon State has gotten off to an 0-3 start this year so far.
Unbelievable.
So those are the biggest games of the week. Alabama does have a bye this week. Alabama and Georgia both have byes this week before Alabama plays at Georgia next week, which will be the biggest SEC game of the year so far. I say probably up there with the Georgia Tennessee game. So we still got great games this week.
War Eagle. All right, great. That's one. What's two? That was a lot for one, by the way.
Yeah, it was. All right, so this is amazing to me. So the Iman Khalif story that we all talked about, which had a big victory recently with now the jurisdiction that will preside over Olympic boxing is now going to be having mandatory sex screening, which now Iman Khalif will not be able to box as a woman, as he did and won the gold medal in the 2024 Olympics. But Don Lemon, we all love Don Lemon, right? He went on Piers Morgan. I think this clip, it's a quick clip, and I'll cut it off before it gets too far. But I just think it's important to mock and point out the ridiculousness of what Don Lemon was saying about his take on the Iman Khalif situation and him going up against women boxers.
You got video on the live stream?
I do.
All right, go for it.
A young female Italian boxer quit after 40 seconds because she'd never been hit that hard and genuinely feared for her life. And Iman Khalif goes on to win gold medal at the Olympics. Does that not ring an alarm bell for you, Don? I mean, do you not think that the reason we separate sexes in the Olympics is because males have an advantage? I mean, why would you not think that's important? It's
Do you want me to tell
medal.
you the truth?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Piers, I'll tell you the truth about this. I heard about this story, but it's not something that I focus on. I'm not watching the Olympics like that. Maybe I'm different. I'm just not. I'm not that interested in watching everything. I like to watch the swimming. I like to watch the gymnasts. I'm not interested in boxing or any of that because I think it's a brutal sport anyway. So for me, it's just not that interesting. I'm sorry that anybody was hit that hard, but if you put yourself in the arena to be hit and someone hits you hard, then whose fault is that?
Well, you expect to be hit by other women, not men.
Well, I don't know that. I don't know who she expected to.
So, by the way, folks, Phil is currently having to step away for a second here, but that is just crazy. absolutely crazy because Don Lemon is saying if you're, he's referencing, by the way, the woman boxer that quit during the match because she had never been hit by so hard in her life and was hit by a man, not a woman, a man. And thankfully she quit because people have lost their lives boxing. Like boxing is unlike others, most other sports where people have directly died from boxing, from, brain bleeds and such. So this is a dangerous sport that this girl was playing. And it's not her fault that the Olympics allowed Iman Khalif to box as a woman when he is a man and actually had failed past sex screenings in other boxing competitions, to which the IOC, the Olympic Committee, said that was Russian misinformation. So this is not the girl's fault that ended up quitting mid-match. It's the Olympics' fault for allowing Iman Khalif to go in and box as a female. And I see Phil is now back. But yeah, the Don Lemon comments, it's not to him to put the blame on the girl who quit instead of the girl can't control that. The girl competed her whole life to box in the Olympics and had to go up against a man who is boxing as a female. That's not her fault because she's trying to fulfill her dream and she's being forced by the Olympics to box as a box against a male. So yeah, shifting the blame on the girl and the biological woman in that situation that did nothing wrong is completely ridiculous.
Well, but Don Lemon says it's a brutal sport anyway, so why are we talking about it?
Yeah, but Don Lemon doesn't watch the Olympics, so it really doesn't matter that much. Okay, so Don Lemon doesn't watch it; it doesn't matter. But I just thought that it was worthy to call out how ridiculous that was, and the fact that now that we have this victory, and Iman Khalif is now going to have to box where he belongs in the men's division. I think it's important to continue to talk about how ridiculous that story was, so it doesn't happen again.
Absolutely. God Almighty. That's the most infuriating thing. I mean, it's common sense. It's also sports. And like you said, she had tried to all her life get to the point where she was, and then she had it robbed.
Yes. Not her fault.
Next. What's 3?
Well,
that's only 2.
Yeah, it's only 2. So, alas, 4 weeks after the incident took place, Rajah Jackson, as of yesterday, has now been arrested.
Oh, no kidding.
Felony, 1 count of a felony assault charge. Like I said, it took 4 weeks for them to finally arrest Rajah Jackson. If you don't remember, the Rajah Jackson story was where he went and he was a part of a pro wrestling event. And beforehand, him and this pro wrestler, part of the event, had some beef where he broke a fake beer can over his head, eventually apologized, but they were going to work it into the match that Rajah was going to come in and script it. He was going to have some worked punches, take him down. It wasn't going to be any real punches. But he decided to double leg him over his head, knock him unconscious when he hit the mat, and then wail on him for about 20 unanswered punches. And Psycho Stu, which is the professional wrestler's nickname, was in the hospital for a good bit afterwards. He was eventually then released out of ICU and was home recovering. He had a broken jaw, broken teeth, and now Rajah Jackson, 4 weeks after the incident, I believe it was 4 weeks, Rampage Jackson's son is now finally arrested for assault. He is still being held on a $50,000 bail, but part of me says, thank you, justice has been served, but also it took him that long. It took him that long. It was on camera.
Yeah.
It was on
I saw
camera.
It was brutal.
Yeah. So and there was also apparently some screenshots of some group chats of the wrestling promotion, the owner telling the wrestlers not to cooperate with the police. If they were contacted, to say nothing and let the owners handle it. So them trying to obstruct because they know they're probably just as much in trouble, probably had this take, this long. But I guess I'm glad eventually justice was served. We'll see what comes of it. If, he may get off on, house arrest for like 3 months or so. I don't know. Something light, but hopefully he does get served some sentence and is, learns a lesson from this.
Now, granted, he's got criminal charges now, but has he ever issued a public statement, any kind of mea culpa on this at all?
No, so I don't think he personally has. I think he hasn't streamed since the incident, I believe. But his dad, Rampage, has said that he hopes his son does get some jail time. Actually, he wants his son to learn a lesson from this. He did say he doesn't think it needs to be anything serious like aggravated or attempted murder or anything like that. But he said he hopes his son does get a little bit of jail time so he can learn his lesson from this. So he may be getting just that. But finally, like I said, 4 weeks after the fact, he has now been finally arrested.
Wow. What's about friggin' time?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, man. That's 3. That felt like 5.
Well, you did step away for some of it. So.
All right. That's a 3 and out. First round of the JP on Sports segment. We come right back, and I've got a timer and a buzzer. 2-minute warnings. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Much as you can in a cell by yourself, I began to start taking ownership of my thoughts, feelings, behaviors, decisions, all that kind of stuff. So much so that my family really began to like, because I would have a phone call a week. That's all they would give me. Not that, like, I could call them every day on my hour out if I wanted, but my family would pick up the phone once a week. They'd cut me off. I'd burned every bridge.
Wow.
And in those weekly phone calls, my family started to notice a huge change in my attitude.
Who'd you call?
My grandma Barb.
Okay.
Yep. And I would call my grandma Barb, and usually it would be on Sunday night, and my mom would be over there, and my brother would be over there, and and so they'd pass the phone around or whatever, and I'd talk. But they specifically, my grandma Barb is like, something's changed in him, and everyone, and a lot of people in the family told grandma she was crazy. You just got a soft spot for Brian, whatever. But she's like, no, I feel like something's changed, and
Is that your dad's mom or your mom's mom?
that's my mom's mom.
Okay.
Yep. Meanwhile, my dad's mom, the one that was teaching Sunday school for Miss K, Scott Beeson, when he interviewed me, said, who was praying for you? It was a good question. I said, well, Betty Dawson was. And lots of credit goes to her for that. But Grandma Barb, she began to really believe in me and believe that there was a change that had happened, so much so that she, so in this time period, that 4 months that I'm in there, I guess about 3 months into my ADSEG stay, my public defender came and said, okay, Brian, the district attorney, she was like really excited to give me this deal like it was a good one.
Your attorney was?
Yes, a public pretender. And she comes and says, Brian, this is great. If you sign this deal, you're only going to get 32 years with a crime of violence. And I'm like, amazing. When you're 23, 384 and 32, there's not a lot of difference, right? And so I was not real excited about that. So I called my grandma and I said, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. Because the way it works in Colorado, it's way different than it is in Alabama. On a 32-year sentence with a crime and violence sentence enhancer, which is another way that you have a crime of violence, so they stack your sentences, then they aggravate it, and then they multiply it. So it's basically they're just going to throw everything they can at you. If you go to trial, and she explains this to me, if you go to trial, this is what they can do to you. But I tell my grandma I'm going to prison for the rest of my life, and she reaches out to these attorneys. She's got a little bit of money. She doesn't got a lot of money. She's just reaching out to these attorneys. They're like 60 grand, 120 grand, 150 grand to represent, he's got 6 felonies.
I'm underbilling myself apparently as an attorney.
Yes. Well, if you get into criminal law and you got a guy with 6 felonies, you should probably charge more. But they're like, and she's like, well, I can't afford any of that. And I said, go talk to Jeff Barker. Jeff Barker's got a great reputation for being kind of an up and coming new lawyer who's just really, really good. And she goes and sits down with him, and he's like, look, best I can do is $10,000. And if he goes to trial, I need another 10. My grandma says, I don't have another 10. He's like, well, he ain't going to trial, so I'm not that worried about it. Right. So he's like, okay, $10,000. And so he ends up becoming my attorney. And we're a little bit long form, so I'm going to go into some of this because this is really cool. I've never told this part of the story in any media hits. And so, now I'm up against the wall when I try to retain this attorney. The next day, I've got to take my plea or I've got to go to trial. So they've got witnesses showing up for my trial that day. So if I don't take the plea, I go to trial.
You're down to knuckle dragging.
Down to knuckle dragging. And you're an attorney. You kind of know how some of this stuff works. Yeah. The judge says, you don't get a new attorney, buddy. No, he's not your attorney. Your attorney is this lady, and you either sign the plea or you go to trial. I'm like, my grandma's like, my new supposed to be attorney's like, and the public defender comes over and she's like, hey, I don't know how this happened, but one of the witnesses in the case got stuck in traffic or whatever, and she's not going to be able to be here. She has to get back to work. And so they had to delay it, and they punted for 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, I'm able to have him retain, and he gets me into a mediation hearing. And in the mediation hearing, this is really cool too, negotiation tactics. They were never able to, so what a mediation is, they have a retired judge, his name was Judge Toth. I'd be in one room with my attorney is how it's supposed to work, and it's supposed to be at the courthouse, and I'm in one room, the district attorney's in another room, I'm with my attorney, and Judge Toth goes back and forth, okay? And I think I should get 8 years. Well, we think you should get 32. Well, I think I should get 10. I think it's basically like horse trading. Okay. Well, we couldn't get our calendars to line up to get it done at the courthouse, so she had to come to the county jail on Martin Luther King Day on her day off. Okay, and she's in there in her pajamas. The deputy district attorney, she's in there in her pajamas. She's absolutely pissed that she's there, and I can see this. I'm like, she didn't want to be here. I've got 384 years. I've got nowhere to go, and she obviously doesn't want to be here. So I just kept dragging and dragging and dragging.
We discovered years ago the best time to buy a car is right before the staff leaves for a holiday weekend.
Yeah, it's like go, go, go.
So you're in that mode right now.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so we're back with round 2 of JP on Sports. And yeah, he does have the best sound effect. He's got great content. And we do the next section here called the 2-minute warning. I got a timer and a buzzer. He's got 2 minutes per story. Take it.
Well, I feel old because now Clayton Kershaw has announced that he will be retiring at the end of this season.
I'm sorry, did I laugh? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I grew up watching Clayton Kershaw. He was a staple of my childhood of watching baseball. So it's sad to see Clayton Kershaw hanging it up. But the Dodgers announced that at the end of this season, he will be calling it quits. He will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But also, I'd like to give Clayton Kershaw some props that there were several moments throughout his career where he stood firm in his faith when certain issues came up. Like, for example, this season when the Dodgers were forced to wear Rainbow Pride Dodger hats, he decided to write the Genesis scripture on the side of his hat with Sharpie for everyone to see the scripture talking about the rainbow, God's gift to the earth, his promise that he will never flood the earth again. There was also some past instances where he openly expressed his faith when confronted with cultural issues. So Clayton Kershaw, like I said, for sure, first ballot Hall of Famer and somebody that will be missed in the world of baseball. But I also want to give him props for standing firm in his faith several times throughout his career, giving a perfect example and being a great role model for upcoming kids who watched him, including myself. So, yeah, Clayton Kershaw will be retiring at the end of the year, but I think it's important to not only talk about his great baseball career, but instances like that where he stood firm in his faith.
Yeah, and that's so key because the amount of pressure they were under to have to wear their rainbow hats or rainbow patches or whatever else. And for him to do that, especially knowing where his venue is, I mean, that's anyway. But the bottom line is he stood and he took heat for standing, but he stood anyway.
He did.
And there it is. All right, reset the clock and go.
So on next week, on the 23rd, so that's next Tuesday, the SEC will be announcing each team moving forward, starting next year for the 4-year time frame. Each team will have 3 rivals that they play every year. And then they will have 6 other teams that will be on a rotator. And so that it makes sure that each team within that 4-year period will have to play every single SEC team. And it's moving to a 9-game SEC conference schedule. So next Tuesday, like I said, SEC Network will be announcing who each team's 3 teams are that they'll be playing each year. I think I've briefly talked about this before, but I think it's pretty fair to say, teams like Alabama should be Tennessee, LSU, Auburn. I think it's a fair 3. Auburn's, who would you say? Alabama, obviously. Alabama and Georgia. Who would you say would be the other you'd like to see Auburn play each year?
Oh, God. I mean, I think you said what you already say. You said
Alabama and Georgia, I think, are 2.
I'd say Tennessee.
Tennessee.
I mean, that's like a legacy game.
Some people have mentioned Vanderbilt. Auburn and Vanderbilt have sort of a historical rivalry they're trying. Yeah, exactly. They're hopefully trying to legitimize it a little bit. I think it's fair for Tennessee, to be Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. So there's a lot of teams that everybody off the top of their head would say, okay, those are the 3, real rivals. But Alabama also has Dixieland Delight to thank for.
I could also see Ole Miss, though. I could see Ole Miss
as one of Auburn's.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting which route they go. If they go with the obvious, for certain teams, like the obvious rivals, or if they try to, change it up, throw you a curveball, whatever. I don't know. We'll see what the SEC does, but I think it's an interesting new era. SEC going to a 9-game schedule, I think, to force everybody to play. There's no more hiding from good teams and good SEC teams not playing each other.
Yeah, that's it. Got to stop you.
That's good.
All right, reset the clock. 2-minute warning. Go.
Well, we had the historic Crawford versus a Canelo boxing match this past weekend, and I was dead wrong on it. I predicted, I thought Canelo was going to win, but Terrence Crawford dominated. Terrence Crawford dominated in that fight, won via unanimous decision, and he is now the undisputed super middleweight champion. And it was great to see, not only because of, like I said, it's very rare that you get two of the best in their prime at the time of their prime actually fight each other in boxing, because boxing is such a sport where everybody's trying to protect their record, and very rarely do you see big super matches like this. But guys like Dana White, who made a career in the UFC having the best fight the best, he helped promote this fight and help get this fight together. It was great to see that, but also it was great after the fact. Two guys were very respectful and classy. Crawford went into Canelo's post-fight presser and gave him his three belts that he lost to have on the table during his press conference. Told him it was a good match, and then eventually, shook hands with his daughter and his wife that was there as well. So it was great all around to see the two of the best. Go out. Now we know who would win in that match. And not only that, but after the fact, they were very respectful and classy. And I hope we see some of that more often in the boxing world. Hopefully we see the best find the best more, and know that even after the fact, although Canelo lost, nobody really sees him as less than what he was. I think everybody just knows Crawford is that good. So
that being said, though, was it a worthy fight to watch? I mean, was it one of those like you're engaged in the fight, or was it one of those like, that was all right?
I mean, it for sure. Like if you're a boxing fan, you're watching a chess match for sure. I mean, some people may have watched it and thought that nobody got knocked out. It was a boring fight, but it was a great, back and forth. You could see it was a very technical fight. Two of the best doing what they do. So yeah, I thought it was for sure worth the watch. Like I said, I hope that inspires more people. If they see Canelo not take a hit, and I think that's what boxers are scared of. If I lose a 0 on my record, nobody's going to want to watch me anymore. I don't think anybody feels that with Canelo. I think everybody's just impressed. Crawford did what he did, and Canelo, after the fact, is still going to be a big name. So I hope that inspires boxers to fight the best within their weight classes more moving forward.
I'm still waiting for Butterbean to have a comeback.
Butterbean. That guy was the man.
Oh, we ran over time. I'm sorry. That's my fault. I forgot to hit the buzzer. All right. So do we have time for overtime?
About 20 seconds here.
All right. So what do you want to talk about?
Well, the Ryder Cup is this next week. So I'm very excited to watch that. They'll be playing at Bethpage Black. And I hope USA comes out on top of this one. It's time for the USA to start winning the Ryder Cup, man. I want to see it.
Come on, Ryder Cup. Absolutely. All right. Listen, that's it. JP on Sports, brought to you by Inspire Advisors. I'll tell you more about Inspire Advisors momentarily. In the meantime, don't forget, coming up right after the break, Congressman Barry Moore calling in. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
She's in her pajamas.
It's snowing outside, and she just doesn't want to be there. And so I keep dragging and keep counter-offering, and she loses, and she says, that's it. 15 years with the crime of violence. That's my final offer. No way with the violence in your crime and the assault cases that you've caught in county jail, these 2 extra assault cases, will I ever drop this crime of violence? And so on a 32-year sentence with a crime of violence, you're going to do 24. Okay? So that matters. It's a huge, you're going to do more of your time.
Yeah.
And then on a nonviolent, you're going to do maybe a third of your time or less. Okay. So I'm heavy focused on that crime of violence. Okay, we got her down to a decent year range, and I don't know where this came from. It had to have been a God thing. And I looked at my lawyer. I said, you don't tell Judge Toth anything. I said, you walk in there to that district attorney, go tell her that, my client doesn't want to end up in he wants to change his life. He doesn't want to end up in a maximum security prison with swastikas all over his face. He wants to change his life. He's willing to give you a year if you drop the crime of violence. And the way their thing works is like, oh, I get 16 instead of 15, cha-ching. And all of a sudden, all that, conviction about crime of violence just went out the window.
So she got a trophy, basically.
Correct. Yeah. And so I gave her the year, which is that's good for her. So she drops the crime of violence, and I get 16 years with no crime of violence is what I ended up getting sentenced to. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
That
I
is
was
crazy. You are into sales.
Yeah. And I was the happiest person ever to be sentenced to 16 years. Like, yay, 16 years in prison. But again, everything's relative when you face it to 32 or 384. Yeah.
All right. You said in one interview I saw with you, I've forgotten, it's some folks that you had known, but they have their own podcast, Emily and somebody else. I've forgotten the guy's name, the husband and wife team.
Chris and Emily, yeah.
Yeah, Chris and Emily. But at one point you said in that solitary confinement where you began having that epiphany about accepting responsibility for your own actions and you're not a victim of that, you felt like God had thumped you. But you still weren't there yet.
Yeah.
But then you started meeting and hanging out with a guy who, in your words, what I saw was he began to drop seeds of the gospel in your life.
100%.
And was that in prison? Was that in county jail? Where was
Prison.
that? That was prison.
Yeah. So here I am. God thumps me on the head and shows me it's my fault.
Right.
Shortly after that, I get into this negotiation hearing.
Right.
My heart's softened to the idea of God and him working in my life.
Because he has been.
Because he has been. And then I get 16 instead of 32, so now I'm looking at getting out in 5 years instead of 24 or never. So I knew God had moved. And so I'm like, okay. But I was always open to God. I always prayed to God. I always knew that God was real. I had some experiences in church growing up that were like bad experiences, but good experiences. I don't know how to really describe it. Like these people had something that I wanted, but I also saw how judgmental and kind of hypocritical that they were. Yeah. And so I was just like, but I knew that God was real. And so I prayed. Like when I was a kid, I prayed. Through my addiction, I prayed. When I was a fugitive, I prayed a bunch. And when I was in county jail, I prayed even more. Wondering about what my sentence was. I knew God was real, but I didn't understand how Jesus factored into it, and no one ever really taught me about Jesus. So I was agnostic. I knew that God was there, but I didn't understand how it worked. Right?
Yeah.
And so I get to the first prison I get to is called Huerfano County Correctional Center, which is in Walsenburg, Colorado. You go in there. You got in Colorado you wear greens, and so you got your greens on. And you've got a couple extra pairs of greens and a couple pairs of state-issued underwear, like a cup and a spoon, and you walk into your unit, and the thing slams behind you, and you're now in your unit that's, got 120 guys in there. And you're like, okay, what's about to happen, because the new guy comes in, fish, fresh fish, and here comes this big, huge dude with a Semper Fi tattoo on his arm.
Oh, former Marine, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, well, always a Marine, they say. True. I've made the mistake of calling him a former Marine and been corrected 17 times. So, he walks up and reaches out and shakes my hand. He says, "My name's Charles. I'm a Christian, and this is a faith pod." And so all the movies that were going off in my head about the doors slamming and someone coming up to stab me having to fight to see if I was tough, like there's all the things that I thought coulda, woulda, shoulda. But this big, burly, huge dude who definitely could have beat me up is like, "My name's Charles. I'm a Christian. This is a faith pod." That wasn't on the, on the
bingo card.
List. Correct. Not on the bingo card. Yep. And I'm like, okay, Charles, what is a faith pod? And he goes, "Man, we do discipleship in here. And, we do Bible studies. We do discipleship. And I take seminary classes on the weekends. And, we do praise and worship every single morning." And they did. And
he's saying words you don't even know.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have to get out of here immediately. That was my response to that.
Put you in the cult ward.
Get me out of here. You ever seen Happy Gilmore when? Anyway, there's the scene with the lady in the old folks' home where she falls and "Get me out of here." But that's how I felt. I was like, I got to get out of here. But it's prison, and it turns out you can't get out of there. Who knew? And so I was stuck, and it was a good thing. And Charles really just became my friend. He didn't browbeat me. He didn't, he wasn't over the top. He was my friend, and you get in there, you don't have coffee, you don't have soups, you don't have, sweats, you don't have any of that stuff. And so he gave me, all those things. Like, here, you need some of this, you need some of this. Hey, if you need anything, let me know. So he just became my friend. and his conversation would turn to a subject or a situation. He would kind of Socratically ask me questions.
He would weave Jesus into it.
And he would weave Christ into the questioning and say, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about that? And I remember one of the funniest ones he did was, I'm again, this is pre-saved Brian in prison, okay? And I'm talking about, girls and having sex with girls and all this other stuff. And Charles just looks at me, he's like, but wouldn't it be like so much more beautiful if like you just didn't have sex again until you got married? And I died laughing so hard and just pointing at Charles like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But you know what? Flash forward, that's exactly what I ended up doing. Yeah. And it was because of that question that happened before I got saved that Charles did. So or go ahead.
No, I got to say, part of my weird resume is that I spent 7 years in full-time ministry with an organization called Young Life.
Yeah.
Which is headquartered in Colorado Springs, by the way. I spent time in Springs because of that.
Yeah.
Love that city. Probably back when you were actually messing up things. But we called it relational evangelism.
Yeah.
It was earning the right to share your faith is what we called it.
Yeah.
And it was not relationship, with a catch. It was relationship with purpose. And also, oh, by the way, if you don't love Jesus, I'm still going to love you.
Yeah.
Conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Friday. Yeah. Going to get you all the way to go home time on a Friday afternoon. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a moment and step aside to the phones and bring in somebody who's been a friend of the show. I've had the pleasure of knowing Barry Moore, Congressman Barry Moore, for a number of years. We both served in the Alabama State Legislature. He went on to serve in Congress. He serves in what is now the redrawn version called the Alabama 1st Congressional District. It covers a huge swath of ground across South Alabama, basically from the Wiregrass all the way over towards Mobile. And yes, he has been a longtime conservative member of Congress, a member of the Freedom Caucus, and has basically always been, as long as I've known him, a very staunch conservative. He's announced he's not going to run for re-election to the House because he is running for the U.S. Senate in the seat being vacated by our current Senator Tommy Tuberville. So without any further ado, let me quit talking and bring on Congressman Barry Moore. How you doing?
Hey, I am doing fine, Phil. It's great to be on Rightside Radio with you, brother.
Well, thank you, man. Appreciate your time. And by the way, I'll say for the audience's benefit, I know you're traveling. You literally just got off a plane getting back from D.C., and you're in the car right now with your lovely wife. So I appreciate you making time for Rightside.
Glad to do it, man. It's always an honor to be with you.
Well, thank you for that. Hey, listen, you and I are both going to be at an event this weekend in Decatur, a vigil to sort of remember and honor the legacy left by Charlie Kirk, who was murdered just a little over a week ago. But you guys had some major floor activity on this today. Tell us what happened today.
Yeah, so we voted on a resolution to honor Charlie Kirk on the floor of Congress. As a matter of fact, it was the next to last vote we had today. And believe it or not, 118 Democrats either voted against the resolution or voted present, Phil. So 50% of that party would not even honor that man.
That's crazy to me. I mean, how hard it is to honor someone who has been murdered. And oh, by the way, it wasn't like you were calling on the world to adhere to all the things that Charlie Kirk stood for. You were just honoring his legacy, right?
Exactly right. It was just honoring the legacy of a man who spoke love and spoke it in a way that, I mean, he had a beautiful mind. We know that. He was brilliant. But he never accosted anybody. He let the people who disagreed with him come to the front. He was a free speech icon of our time and was moving the needle for young people across college campuses where dialogue, honestly, is supposed to be key. Socrates and Aristotle, those guys, they use discussions to educate. And in this time we live in now, it's troubling when you actually have a man who spoke truth in love. He was never unkind to anybody. And they felt that they could not even just memorialize him in a simple resolution. That shows you, my friend, the battle that we're in.
It really does. And I mean, just to clarify, you guys weren't like naming a national holiday in his name. You weren't like trying to change the name of the Capitol building in DC to the Charlie Kirk Capitol building. I mean, this was just literally an honorary moment to just memorialize, period. That was it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's troubling to see that the other side could not even in good conscience just push the yes and say, we're going to honor this man. We might not even agree with him, but he was an icon. Like I said, he was a bastion of free speech. And he did it in a way that I don't know how anybody could not like Charlie Kirk unless there was an absolute spiritual battle going on, because the man spoke truth in love.
Yeah, and I've seen that over and over again. I think what's a shame is I feel like I have become even more keenly aware of his messaging and his capabilities since his passing. I don't know if you were there or not. Were you at the Alabama Republican dinner in 2018? I think when he and Candace Owens came and spoke, and they were real young.
No, I wasn't there. I met Charlie one time. We hung out a little bit at Mar-a-Lago, but I have friends who are very close to him, so I didn't get to hear him speak that night. But believe you me, over the years, I followed him on Instagram
Oh,
along with
sure.
millions of other people, and just loved the way he just took people to task on the issues, but always with facts, and like I said, with a kindness that you don't see in many humans in this world that disagree with other people. Even when they attacked him, man, he always spoke in a way that I thought resonated, and honestly that's how you get 485,000 members of Turning Point on college campuses because you are moving the needle for the conservative, free thought, free speech, love of America movement.
Well, so let me ask you this: what's the mood been like in D.C.? Because I know what's really interesting is how many people, it turns out, considered Charlie Kirk to be a personal friend who are in what I would call the halls and seats of power. I mean, all the way up to the Oval Office. I mean, what's been the mood in the immediate aftermath, and what are people saying?
Well, I think the initial move for me, and I think so many people I talk to, even people today and on the elevators in DC on the Hill, there was a, it was shock, man. There was a deep, deep hurt, and I think because that was a dark day for American history, and so, but what I realized through that is I honestly think that that day of that man's death has moved the needle more than 31 years of his life. If you see you cannot go through social media feeds and not see Charlie Kirk 7 out of 10 posts because, and you didn't, like you said, it was people in seats of power, but it was entertainers. It was professional athletes. It was country music artists. It was President of the United States. It was people from all moves and walks of life that appreciated the man for what he was and what he stood for. And again, I think now there is a resolve. Obviously, there was shock, there was hurt, there was pain, there was anger. But now there is a resolve, I think, to carry on this man's legacy.
Well, and rightfully so. And we were talking here in the studio off the air. The sense is right now things are kind of like game on. Like, okay, you know what? The idea of all this call for unity, it's hard to be unified when the other side wants to kill you. And it's one thing to reach across the aisle when you can, but on matters of principle that are being obstructed for no other good reason than just the fact that they just want to obstruct, I just sense this kind of movement towards we're just going to get it done now.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I hope that maintains. I was on a college campus last weekend with Brylan Hollihan, who's going to be with us Sunday,
Right?
And I was so encouraged by the young people walking up to him saying, "Hey, I joined Turning Point. I joined Turning Point. Thank you for what you're doing." And so it just, I don't know, man. There's just not just on the Hill, not just hopefully in the halls of Congress, but in the campuses of college campuses across this country, young people are seeing that they really took out one of their leaders, one who helped them, moved them along and taught them and educated them about the greatness of the nation and all that about his faith in Christ. And so I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing. I think there's a level of resolve across the campus and of colleges, like I said, on the Hill in DC and in rural America, hopefully big city America, people are waking up. And I love the fact that there are Democrats coming on saying they're leaving the party. They can no longer be a part of what is the evil that would silence free speech and assassinate a man because of political differences.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, man, you and I are going to be together on Sunday in Decatur. Don't know what to expect yet. I was talking to one of our buds you and I both knew from the house days that has been helping organize it. But what are you expecting and what kind of message are you bringing?
Well, I'm going to bring a message about what is the legacy and where do we go from here? What do we do as Christians, as people in this country, to fill in where Charlie left off? You know, and I think we all need to become Charlie Kirk. I think we have to step up and be more like him. Nobody can fill his shoes, but you take 100,000 people who are willing to be bold in their faith, willing to be bold in their love for this country. I think that's the message we need to encourage. We need to tell folks, let's move forward. Let's don't let his legacy die. Let's hold this man as one of the leaders that was assassinated, and let's let them know that he was a Christian martyr, but in fact, he mobilized a movement that cannot be stopped.
Well, that's a perfect message, and I look forward to being there with you. Hey, let me ask you this: we got a few minutes left. All right, so my friend, you have pivoted. You've been in the House now for several years, and you are pivoted to running for the U.S. Senate. Statewide deal, dude. You're having to hit 67 counties now when you campaign. How's things going?
Going well. We're actually on the road. We're headed to North Alabama tonight, but so far so good. You know, Coach, he got big shoes to fill. He's a conservative guy, but I tell everybody his liberty score. You know, Charlie was big on protecting liberty. He had freedom on the front of his shirt when he was assassinated. Coach is a 91.7, and I'm a 92.4. So we're two conservative guys, and since he's leaving, I felt like, you know what, we got to stay in the fight, man. This country is worth the fight, and so we're traveling. We're going to be all over the state when we're in town, and certainly I've got a lot of people that have volunteered. Senate Conservatives PAC endorsed me. Jim Jordan endorsed me. Senator Daines has endorsed me. So we're going to continue moving the needle, getting the word out. And if people want to know a little bit about us, just go to barrymoreforalabama.com and they can see a little bit about us, learn a little bit more about me, especially from North Alabama and don't know us.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. I mean, you're greatly known because of your campaigns and service in both the state house as well as the Congress down yonder in South Alabama. 67 counties, I'm sure feels different. You're probably wearing down some tires right now, making your rounds around the state. But where all do you plan to be, like in the next week or so? Do you know?
Yeah, so I'll be in Fort Payne tomorrow, good part of the day, over towards Athens, Gunnersville, all in North Alabama the next few days and weeks. And so I don't think we were going to fly back to D.C. A week from Monday, but I think since we got the CR done today, I won't have to. And so we're going to continue, brother, just to let people know who we are. And I'm proud of our record. And I tell everybody I was elected in 2020, Phil, but 2020 is perfect hindsight. You can look at the record, you can look at where I voted and how I stood, and know that there is no doubt I am a conservative and all that. The first in the nation endorsed Donald Trump 10 years ago. So we've been in the fight with the man since long before the train left the station, and we're not about to jump off now. We're in this thing, we're in it to win it, and we're going to help the president achieve his agenda to make America great again.
All right. Well, Congressman Barry Moore, we appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you Sunday, and talk to you soon.
God bless you, my friend.
All right. Take care. That was Congressman Barry Moore from Alabama's 1st Congressional District. A longtime member of the House Freedom Caucus, very conservative guy. And I enjoyed serving with him together when we were down in Montgomery together. But he is now running for the U.S. Senate to replace Tommy Tuberville. Got a pretty stout race right there between he and Steve Marshall and Jared Hudson. That's a deep bench, dude. That's a deep bench. In the meantime, we're taking a break. We'll take that break right now. We'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
Friendship, but we earned the right to share our faith, we called it. And there's a passage of scripture just came to me while we're sitting here talking, hearing you say it. I believe it's in Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians. It says, because we loved you so much, we were content not just to share the gospel, but our very lives as well.
Yeah.
Meaning the gospel's really important, but I'm even going to share who I am in a relationship with you. That's where Charles was, it sounds like.
Yep, 100%.
Very cool. All right, so you're hanging out with Charles.
Hanging out with Charles. We're at Walsenburg about a year in. I don't remember exactly how it breaks down. He gets shipped to Sterling Correctional Facility. So I'm there on my own. Huerfano County Correctional Center in Walsenburg was a private prison. So it's like Corporations Correction of America, or I guess they call it some other company now, Core Civic. It was one of those prisons, and it got shut down. And so I get moved to Benton County, which is another Core Civic prison. It was Corrections Corporation of America at the time. I'm there for 6 months, and then they moved me to Canyon City, to Arrowhead Correctional Center, which is like Camp Cupcake. Okay, and so they moved me to Camp Cupcake, and they didn't know they made a mistake. With my sentence and how much time I have, I'm not allowed to be at Camp Cupcake, right? I'm not supposed to be. And I'm there for like 2 months, and it's up in the mountains in Canyon City, Colorado. I'm like, man, I can get used to this. It was like God gave me a little vacation. And then once they figured it out, they ended up shipping me to Sterling Correctional Facility. I walk out on the yard at Sterling Correctional Facility, which is a massive prison, right? There's 4 separate yards, so I didn't have to land on the yard with him. But I walk out on they call it the 20s yard where I was, and boom, there's Charles.
How about that?
Right away. So
back together again.
Yeah.
Pick up where you left off.
Yeah, and he was a softball coach. That was his way of doing evangelism. He put together a softball team, and it was like, is it? I remember how shocked I was when I walked into a medium security prison. So there's like killers and everything in this prison, and there's a softball team which requires these things called metal bats. I'm like, they have metal bats in prison? Like, that seems counterintuitive.
Who thought this was okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he did. He coached a softball team, and I was the third baseman, and you know, that was his way that he would evangelize guys. And so I get to Sterling, he's like, hey, what was great about Sterling is they had grass. So I was excited to play softball there, but that's neither here nor there. And so he's like, man, you want to play softball again? Yeah. So he's just doing the same thing, friends, ministering, planting seeds. And he goes, man, Brian, you got parole coming up in a couple of years. You really need to get you some certificates for the parole board. I'm like, great. And he's like, well, I'm the chaplain's assistant. I can get you into some programs. And the chaplain's office was over all the programs, secular or otherwise. I'm like, cool, yeah, get me in. And he gets me into them, and it's they're faith-based programs.
Ah.
And so I got in there, and I'm like, Charles. So I get
snuck
in.
that gospel in on you again.
He did. And but it was really interesting. And I get in there, and the first program was like Kumbaya, come as you are. You know, it was very, you know, it was not very high theology. It was not rigorous. It was just like, we want to love on you. But in that program, there was like 5 or 6 other guys that were like Charles, guys who'd been down for like 20 years that were men, and they were steeped in the word. And I got around those guys, and I'm just like, geez, like I'm drawn to this, but I can't admit it. And so that program ends, and I went to Charles. I'm like, hey man, I think I need some more certificates for the parole board. And he's like, okay,
Wink, wink, nod, nod.
And so he gets me into this next one. Well, it was very high theology, and it was very rigorous, and it was very much, this is what the Word of God says. It's called The Truth Project with Dr. Del Tackett, which is Christian Worldview and Apologetics.
I got it written down. I was going to ask you about it.
So good. Like, I highly recommend everything Del Tackett does. Everyone should just go and look at all of it. I mean, he did Answers in Genesis. He does The Truth Project. He's got, you know, so many great things. Watch, you know, but what this one is Christian Worldview and Apologetics. You come in, you watch an hour-long video, and then you have an hour-long table discussion afterwards. And I would watch the hour-long video that was, you know, this is what the Word of God says, this is this, but it's like applying it to creation and politics and culture. And it was
giving you a base.
Yeah. And it was so
and
good.
Worldview,
yeah, so good. But when you're not a Christian, it's not so good, right? And so I'm like, this is bullcrap. I hate this. You guys are stupid. And I did. I told those guys at the table, if you believe this crap, you guys are idiots. You're stupid. And I always tell people, it's like, just because they're Christians doesn't mean they're not convicts, okay? And so, like, you tell someone, even us, like, if someone came up and, like, put their finger in our face and said, you're stupid for believing Jesus, I don't know. I hope that I wouldn't punch him in the face, right? But so here I am in prison doing just that, and Charles is just done. He's just, like, throwing his hands in the air. He's like, oh, my gosh. And so this goes on for, like, 2 or 3 weeks where I'm, like, full tilt arguing with these guys. And we walk back to the unit. And, you know, so here's the education building, our unit's over here, and there's a sidewalk that you got to walk around like that. And we're walking back, and we get to about right here, and Charles just looks over at me, and he says, Brian, why don't you give him a chance? Why don't you give him a chance? Jesus being to give him a chance, right? And for whatever reason, in God's sovereignty, as I look at it, that was the moment, okay? And
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just like pulling pins on truth grenades, man. That's what we're doing. So I got to step back here and do the pitch here for Inspire Advisors. So Inspire Advisors is the daily sponsor of, the weekly sponsor of JP on Sports. Inspire Advisors. Okay, what is that? Well, first of all, there's a lot of you out there that are doing what you can to invest, to set aside, to plan for your retirement, or just to, try and do what it takes to have something, a nest egg set aside. And you may not even know that some of who you're investing in, companies you buy stock in or whatever, are actually funds or businesses that do not support the same values you stand for. What do you do with that? Well, Inspire Advisors is really good at what is known as BRI, Biblically Responsible Investing. It's a thing. Biblically Responsible Investing. They will help you review who you're investing in, make sure you have a good return on your investment, an ROI, but you get ROI with BRI, you feel good about it, and you're making money. So all I'm saying is this: if you want to be proud of who you're investing in and see your portfolio grow, Inspire Advisors is there to help you. All you got to do is call Paul Breyer and his team and set up a time to meet with them at Inspire Advisors. And here's their website where you can find all their contact info. Inspire Advisors, it's www.moneypatternwealth.com. That's Inspire Advisors, moneypatternwealth.com. Paul Breyer and his team, weekly sponsors of JP on Sports, really good at what they do. Give them a try and tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I got to step back and get a few text messages too. So earlier, I didn't get to it right after I did that whole segment on saving kids and all the stuff that's out there online, especially. Marshall from Dubai had sent a text, and I felt like I had to check it real quick to make sure I knew what I was reading because it was long. But I'll just summarize it slightly. His brother called him one day, really upset, had an 11-year-old daughter. Did you read his text? Had an 11-year-old daughter. And the daughter had somehow gotten around the internet filter her brother had installed. So her brother was checking her phone and found extremely disturbing chats and even nude pics from her and from a 30-year-old guy in San Antonio, Texas. So he was talking to his brother. He said, "Don't talk to me anymore. Hang up and call your sheriff. Get a report done ASAP." Well, they did. 2 days later, the FBI came and took the phone, reviewed it, and that evening they arrested this pervert 30-year-old guy in San Antonio, extradited him back to Alabama. He pled to a number of offenses to include child porn. And he goes on by saying, parents need to absolutely monitor their children. He said, then I asked my brother, he's going to give her another phone. He said, I won't repeat what he said, but it was basically negative. So, yeah, all said and done. Listen, Marshall, I pray that your niece is well and that all is good at the house. But I am so glad that your brother got that guy caught. That's exactly what has to happen. Thomas Mathen says, in regards to that same topic, quoting the Bible verse from Matthew 18:6, but whoever causes one of these to sin, it shall be better for him a millstone was hung around his neck and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. He said, I believe that all these nihilists will have an awakening in hell, basically, when Satan and his many demons give them hell. Yeah, I'm saying. TL from Huntsville says, Phil, thank you for bringing to our attention the vile evil of 764. We do need to watch our kids closely, and we should also lift this plague up corporately in prayer so these sick people get exposed and caught so they can't influence others and harm children anymore. God help us. I agree with that. Absolutely. And then Dave from Capshaw just says, Boomer Sooner. Dadgummit. Dave from Capshaw, come on. You're not a Boomer Sooner, are you?
I may be an honorary Boomer Sooner for the weekend.
Oh, see? That's just
not if they had not, maybe I would have if they didn't beat us last year.
Tell you what, Auburn wins. You have to wear an Auburn shirt next week.
No, that's not my team.
You have to.
But Oklahoma's not my team. No, I don't comply with that.
It won't hurt you. It's good for your complexion.
It would. I think my skin may start peeling off of me.
Orange and blue is definitely on your color wheel.
No.
You got any comments over there on social media? What do you got? Anything?
Well, it's got the Drummer Marine telling us to have a safe weekend.
Outstanding for that. All right, listen, we're going to take a break. When we come back right from this break, we will have time left in the day to talk about what I call lies and omissions. Lies and omissions. Because don't forget, you can lie about something, but then you can just choose not to tell about something you should have told. And that omission is almost like creating a falsehood in itself. What's going on in and around the issue of Charlie Kirk's death? Well, there's a whole lot of lies and omissions. And right now, I'm even looking up on the screen, CNN's going at it. Trump attacks free speech as the CEOs try to cash in. What does that even mean? All I'm saying is lies and omissions. How about you just deal with the fact that a good man was taken from his family and the rest of us for that matter. And that's what really matters. I will also tell you too, real quickly, I'll just let you know, Monday, I will not be here en route once again to be on CNN in their New York City studios. So I will be on CNN Monday evening at 9 p.m. Central Time on the News Night with Abby Phillip. So check that out and pray for me while I'm there. Never know who's going to be on that board. I get in there and I just have to go at it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
All my guard, all my, defensive mechanisms, for whatever reason, I just said, okay. And kind of as I said earlier, I knew God was real, but I didn't understand Jesus. And he's asking me to give Jesus a chance, not God, but Jesus, which was different. I said, okay. So I went back to my cell and prayed, as I often did. And I said, God, if I need to believe this Jesus character was truly your son, these were my problems with Jesus, okay? And it turns out they're pretty big issues. Said, if this Jesus character was truly your son, that he was born of a virgin, that he lived a perfect, I'm scoffing as I say all this, I'm like, he lived a perfect life, that he died and his death did something for me, and that he rose from the dead. God, if I need to believe that to be okay with you, I need you to show me something because I'm having a really hard time with this. So I go to sleep that night and I have a horrible, horrible nightmare. I mean, it was a crazy nightmare and I still remember like a lot of it, which is crazy, but it didn't make a lot of sense what was happening in it, like flashing faces. It even felt demonic, right?
Well, and it probably was.
Yeah. And I'm falling off of a cliff at the end of it. And right before I hit the ground, I wake up. Like when you're falling in a
Like
dream.
real life wake up.
Yeah, like
Okay.
wake up, whoa. And the only thing I can see, it's completely dark in the cells, and we have those old red digital clocks, right? And so the only thing you can see in the room when I wake up is the red digital clock, and it says 3:16.
Huh.
And the only Bible verse I've ever known my entire life is John 3:16, and it just, boom, right? And that was the answer to my question, right? For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. You asked, I answered, buddy. It's Sunday morning at 3:16 in the morning. What are you going to do? I guess I'm going to church. So I did. I waited till 8, and I went to Christian services, as they call it in prison, because they have to be politically correct. Went to Christian services, and, you know, I don't remember. I sat as far off to the back, to the side as I could with my friend Ramon that was on the softball team. Ramon's such a cool dude. He's a giant black dude, just yoked. I'm talking like waist this big, perfect six-pack, pecs this big, arms just huge, dude. And I had this thing where, and it was a problem in prison. It's the Ned Flanders Christianity. I don't know if you know what I mean by that. If you ever watched The Simpsons, Ned Flanders.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so like okie diddly okie doke. You know, it's like this soft kind of, you know, weak, effeminate, gay, you know, thing. Like a lot of Christians, they're like nicer than God and holier than Jesus. You know what I mean? It's just a weird thing. And so I always rubbed me the wrong way, but here's Ramon, this dude, like, anyway, I'm not gonna, like, he's not that guy. That's what I'll say, right? And he was the guy that brought the blood gang from California to Colorado, cold-blooded killer, until God got a hold of him. And now he's like the prison evangelist. These young guys come in, and he was in Unit 21, which is where you go when you first get to Sterling. And then from Unit 21, you get sent out to all the other buildings. But they kept him in there, and these new guys would come in, specifically young black guys, and he would like body him up and be like, this is the gospel. You know what I mean? And like it was crazy. It was really interesting. So anyway, this is the guy that I went to go sit in church with, because I don't want to be around any of the Ned Flanders guys. You know what I mean? And I wasn't going to let Charles think that he won, you know? And so I sit off to the side in the back. And I don't remember anything Chaplain Davis said. I don't remember what the sermon was on at all. But at the end, he says, all right, guys, we're going to do an invitation. I look over at Ramon. I'm like, brother, what's an invitation? I just knew he was going to be like, brother, that's where you invite Jesus into your heart. But that's not what he said. He said, brother, if you got something hindering your relationship with God, you can go down there and pray with that man about it. And he stepped aside because he already knew that God was on me. As they say in the South, I've learned some Alabama euphemisms. God was on me like a pack of dogs on a three-legged cat. Anyway, so I walk the aisle, as it were, the proverbial aisle. Get down there. Chaplain Davis grabs my hand, puts his other hand on my shoulder. He says, Mr. Dawson, how can I pray for you? So look, chap, I'm not here to make any decisions. I just want to pray that God would soften my heart so the truth can come in, because I feel him working on me, but I'm fighting him with everything I have. And we get done praying, and he's just got tears pouring down his face. And Chaplain Davis is not a tears down the face guy. He's not a hugger. He's not a crier. He's just, you know, he's a man, you know, like, and again, like, not, like I'm a man and I hug and I cry, but like he's not that kind of man. And to see him weeping in front of 130 inmates, I was like, what just happened? And I count that the moment that God saved me. And so I leave there, and
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This one, goes from like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that loveless little village on the plains we call Auburn, War Eagle, straight across the line. I see that look, straight across the line to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And then, oh, by the way, there's big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And then, yeah, that's just the radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, live streaming the show, checking out the tie that Charlene picked out for me to wear this morning. Live streaming on places like X and YouTube and Rumble and Facebook and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then big old bunch of y'all going out there and podcasting the show after the fact. I say all that to say, not just to be cute. It's fun, but the reality is what I'm really doing is pointing out the fact that we know how many of y'all, we can see the numbers, are logging in, listening in, doing what you do to listen to this show, and we appreciate it. Wherever you get it, thank you so much for doing so. By the way, I did notice on Marshall from Dubai's text a while ago, he says he's coming home for a little R&R pretty soon. So, Marshall, welcome back to where the world makes sense.
I'm assuming Marshall is over there for military purposes
or
no?
Contract work. I'm not positive, but
yeah.
I would say probably contract work. But yes, but I do believe he's a military background guy because he does call it R&R.
So he watches the show. What time is it in Dubai right now? It's definitely.
I don't know. Is he watching or listen to it? I don't know. He's streaming it.
It's currently 1:30 in the morning in Dubai. So.
Nice. Pull on the night shift. Listen to the show. Hey, listen. I'm gonna take a few minutes here and do the last piece: lies and omissions. So in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder, what's really amazing to me is the level of vitriol. I mean, like, okay, the guard is coming down. At first it was like shock, and even the Democrats were like, oh crap. And some of them began to say things that were a little out of touch, and people began losing their jobs because they didn't have any like governor on their mouths. Jimmy Kimmel being the top. Now it's like the gloves are off, the inhibitions are down. The bar has been so lowered that Democrats are saying all kinds of stuff. It's as if there is no ability right now for truth to be in the left. I realize that people are not always going to believe what I believe. Go figure. I don't know why they don't. I think I believe the correct things. But the truth is, yeah, there will always be people on what I would call the liberal or progressive side of the spectrum. I never minded when I was in Montgomery in the state capitol debating with someone who believed and was like at least able to converse about why they stood for what they stood for, differing than me. Classic example would be the ones who were pro-choice on abortion when I was pro-life. I knew where I stood. They couldn't argue me off the point. But the ones who just screamed about it and had no other thing to say, I represent all women, which I heard too many times. No, you don't. But sometimes they had a well-reasoned argument that still didn't ring true, but at least they were well-reasoned. Right now, what we're seeing is a lack of truth. It's like the lies and the omissions are just everywhere. I did see this in getting ready for this. I was surprised. Do you remember just the other day, we were talking about, gosh, what day was this? We were talking about the fact that the Biden administration had started to form what it called the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Misinformation, which we nicknamed the Ministry of Truth. Remember that? It was awful. Nina Jankowicz was her name. Nina Jankowicz was the person that was being brought in by Alejandro Mayorkas to run the new, basically, censorship office. The true name of it was the Disinformation Governance Board. Well, right after I did that on the show yesterday, story comes out on LifeSit. I hold it here in my calloused former paratrooper hands. The Third Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled against former Department of Homeland Security official Nina Jankowicz in her defamation suit against Fox News. Wow, I didn't know that was even out there. I mean, that was in 2022. So she's had a defamation case against Fox because they said mean things about her. Well, she was about to be a full-time censor paid by the government with tax dollars. And basically, she accused Fox News of spreading what she called destructive lies. Well, keep in mind, this is the woman who was like the determiner of what truth was. And she was claiming that truth was threatened. And guess what? Her lawsuit got thrown out. Dems can't win right now. I'm for that. But on this thing about Charlie Kirk, there's been several things that have come out that you look at and go, I mean, what are y'all just like making stuff up now? Here's one. I got it off of Fox News exclusive. The Pentagon denies an NBC report about Charlie Kirk's recruiting campaign, calling it 100% wrong. What is this about? Well, apparently, NBC News came out with a report alleging that military leaders have been weighing a new recruitment drive related to the legacy of Charlie Kirk, like they were going to use Charlie Kirk's name on recruiting posters for the military. And the Pentagon's like, where are you getting this from? That's 100% wrong. And blasted NBC for doing what it called, quote, publishing false claims based on anonymous sources. Said this is not happening. And yet fake news NBC, they said, published the report as if it was true using anonymous sources with no knowledge of what recruitment task force at Department of War is actually working on. Well, you look at it and go, why would you do this? Why would you go make up a story? By the way, I've always been really suspect of the ones that go, sources who choose to remain anonymous or prefer anonymity, to avoid being persecuted. No, you know what? If you're going to say stuff like this, put your name on it. But Sean Parnell, who's the chief spokesman now for the Department of War, he said the media is so desperate to attack this administration's success, they're now inventing lies. Under the strong leadership of President Trump and Secretary Hegseth, men and women are coming out in droves to serve this great nation. And that's true. If you look at the recruiting numbers, he's not lying. They're through the roof, 40-year highs. They met mission on recruiting this year like 5 months ahead of schedule. But yet they have to go ahead and find a new Charlie Kirk lie to spread in the midst of it. What are you doing? What are you thinking? I saw you about to say something.
No, it's just like, really? Like, I don't know. Even if they were, like, why would Charlie Kirk have anything to do with the military? I mean, I guess you're trying to reach a certain demographic of young people that were his fans, but even if they were going to do that, like, the guy just died. So why are we trying to smear? I don't know. It's just, it seems like a little bit too soon to be writing hit pieces on the dead, and especially when they're lies.
Yeah, absolutely. Then there's Gavin Newsom. We need to have a special Gavin Newsom sound effect. What would it be if we did? What would the Gavin Newsom sound effect? I mean, we already have jackassery. I haven't played that in a while. You know what? Play me some jackassery. Gavin Newsom, jackassery. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I hit that so hard the thing fell back almost.
The Gavin Newsom is out there having a meltdown about the loss of Jimmy Kimmel. He went after it, the whole thing. I mean, he's all in. He's talking about in his the idea that there is some major attack on free speech, which is rich when you take into account that this is Gavin Newsom. I got a piece here from townhall.com that reminds us, don't forget, reminds us about Gavin Newsom signing not one, not two, but 3 bills into law that were designed to attack free speech. So yes, here's an example. It was AB 2655, a bill that required large online platforms like Facebook to remove or label what it called deepfakes within 72 hours, except who gets to determine what's a deepfake? Yeah, not the people.
Oh yeah, Cringe Up here champion the cheap fake stuff with Joe Biden and the seeming lost. Oh, those are cheap fakes. They're not real.
Well, a federal judge this past week knocked that one down. That one is considered to be unconstitutional. You can't have federal law being preempted by the state. And oh, by the way, you don't get to be the state that then decides what's considered to be fake news. Doesn't work that way. And then there's this one. Where'd it go? Here. The next one was, I'm scrolling, SB 771. It cleared California Senate. This bill would fine social media companies that do, quote, intentionally amplification of violent or extremist content, except they're the ones who decide what's violent or extremist. Granted, I bet you they're not going to do anything about 764, that group we talked about earlier. But they're going to be looking at all the things that are basically considered to be conservative or right wing. Yeah. And then there was AB 587. That legislation required social media companies to, quote, publicly post their policies regarding hate speech, disinformation, harassment, extremism, and report the data on the enforcement of their policies. That was also struck down on First Amendment grounds because it just didn't fly. That's Gavin Newsom. He's signing all those, saying he wants it, but he's upset because Jimmy Kimmel is considered to be a bad business risk for ABC, and they got rid of him.
By the way, he had Charlie Kirk was the first guest on Gavin Newsom's podcast. He welcomed him into his home. He told Charlie Kirk that his son was such a fan, he wanted to stay home from school and see him, and was very nice and was very, friendly to Charlie Kirk when he was there. But now he's not wanting Jimmy Kimmel to be held accountable for lying about Charlie Kirk's death.
Yeah.
So it's a little like the slimy appearance and the slimy behavior by Gavin Newsom. It checks out, apparently.
It does check out. It does. Let me get a few text messages here. John C. from Madison says the left is extremely vulgar over the Charlie Kirk assassination. I've never seen anybody be this vulgar. I know. It's like the guy from Auburn. I won't say what he said, but the guy from Auburn that was fired, who's got a lifestyle that's just wacko. The guy from Auburn, the things he said online are the kind of things that who says that kind of stuff about anybody, anytime. Penny from Athens says, Phil, in my opinion, Abby Phillips and Van Jones spewing their vitriolic rhetoric on her show about Charlie Kirk being a so-called racist, and then on Wednesday he was killed. I feel their words contributed to spreading hate, not Charlie Kirk. May he rest in peace. Yeah, I agree with you, Penny. That's the show that I'm going on Monday. And I do agree that it was the very next day. I can't say that there's any indication that the guy watched their show and got wound up by it. But I thought the timing was pretty awful. Ben from Decatur says, regarding Gavin Newsom, he is the face of kakistocracy. Yes, he is indeed a kakistocracy, government run by the least competent of its citizens.
There is a kakistocracy zone button over here, but I think I understand it's a pretty long sound effect.
It's pretty long. Yeah,
we've never even played that one.
No, we haven't. David at Bucky's checking in. He says, here's a video, Three Stooges, woo woo. I need to check that one out. Love the Three Stooges. My mom wouldn't let me watch the Three Stooges when I was a kid. She was afraid I'd act like them. Like mom.
That's like all the kids my age that their parents wouldn't let them watch SpongeBob for whatever reason.
Oh,
you're missing out.
The Three Stooges. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Hey, Mo. Joe in Tennessee says, I love the fact that the Dems are losing. They're the party of anonymity. They never put their name on anything. May they always lose. Joe C., Tennessee. Take me to a break, JP. We'll take the last break of the day here on a Friday afternoon. Yeah. Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Charles gives me a Bible, Thomas Nelson, New King James Bible. Here you go. And I said, start reading the story of Joseph. And so I get back to my cell and I start reading the story of Joseph, and I'm hooked. I can't get enough, feasting on God's word. And that goes on for about 9 months. It went on long past that, but about 9 months into me feasting on God's word, really just being shaped and molded by his word, loving it, feasting on it, it changing me. Mm-hmm. About 9 months into that, I look around and all my friends in there have pen pals. They've got some girl they're writing, right? Yeah. And I'm just like, let's see. So I call my mom. My mom was running a Facebook page for me, and so what that looks like is she logs in, but like the account she logs into has my picture on it, where I'm not in prison. That's my bait. Look, I'm not in prison, but I really am. And so she's running this Facebook page.
So your mom's catfishing for you.
She's catfishing for me, yeah. And we were very unsuccessful at first. And so I say, basically like, look, don't reach out to these girls. They're from my bad past.
It's cool that your mom was doing that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we reached out to all these girls that were like healthy and went to college and like, weren't drug addicts. Well, I don't know if you know this about healthy girls who aren't drug addicts. They're not real big on writing guys in prison. Like, so those, you have to pick one or the other. You can either have the unhealthy girl that'll write.
I've never studied that, but I can imagine it.
Yeah, no, okay. It's there. And so I struck out completely, and I said, okay, God, I can't take any more rejection. If you want me to have a pen pal, you're going to have to do it, because I'm done.
We're talking old school, write it down on a piece of paper, pen pal.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, everybody in there, yeah.
Put it in an envelope, snail mail it out. Yep.
Correct, yep. And
the prison probably has to read your letter to make sure it doesn't say anything, right?
I think they read a lot more of the ingoing than they do the outbound, but it depends. Okay. Like if you're writing from prison to prison, they read both. Like they have some system. I don't know how they do it, but there's definitely people who wrote some stuff they shouldn't have that got in trouble, and I can't remember which direction the mail was going. But you don't seal it.
Yeah.
You put it in there and it's open. I remember that now that you say that, because I always say, oh yeah, I sealed it, but I actually no, you don't. You put your thing in there and you put your stamp on it and you drop it in the mailbox, and then they go through and open it and look at it and then send it out. So forgot about that now that you bring that up. So no one wants to write me said, okay, God, you're going to have to do it. Told my mom I'm done, whatever. And so, I don't know, 2-3 weeks, maybe it was a month, I don't know, it goes by. I say, call my mom just to check in, see how she's doing. And she goes, hey, Brian, do you know this girl named Christina Ewan? I said, yes, ma'am.
You've known her for a long
A
time.
long time. So Christina Ewan, back in Derby, Kansas, where my dad was. So we grew up together. I was head over heels in love with her, all throughout middle school and high school. We went to 8th grade graduation dance together. After that was the first of many times I professed my undying love to her. And I always say that she gave me the Heisman. It was like, I just want to be friends. Just
Friend zone.
Friends. And so I got friend zoned hardcore. And that went on literally from 8th grade to the beginning of 12th grade before I left Derby. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, if you laid out all my yearbooks from kindergarten to 12th grade and said you can pick one girl to marry, it's Christina every single time. She's like, oh, okay, well, so why? And she said, well, she wants to write you. Excuse me? I said, well, yeah, Christina wants to write you. I was like, does she know I'm in prison? Yeah, she knows you're in prison. Okay, well, that's...
Despite the picture on the Facebook page,
Yeah,
I actually am in prison wearing greens right now.
Correct. And so that's it. So my mom's, catching the thing where Christina's thinking she's messaging me. So that's how that happened. So Christina is on Facebook, and Brian Dawson shows up as a suggested friend. And she's like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to Brian in 10 years. Clicks, sends a message. And then my mom's like, actually, this isn't Brian. This is Brian's mom. He's in prison. To which most women say, oh, dear God, and would run.
Yeah,
but
unfriend.
Not Christina. And she said, well, I'd love to write him. And so again, I say, God, you're going to have to do it. And God did it, right? I didn't send her a friend request. We didn't reach out to her. She found me and reached out to me.
Yeah.
And my mom said, hey, this is what's going on. She said, I want to write him. So God did that. And so I got her address from my mom and wrote her the first letter, though. And said, look, I didn't get drunk and run somebody's dog over. Like, this isn't like some fluke thing. Like you hear about this weird guy that got thrown, like never did anything wrong.
Oh,
Now
really
he's in prison.
for reasons.
Yeah, I belong here. I earned it.
Like real prison reasons.
Correct. And so I said, but God has saved me and I am changed. And everybody in here says that, by the way, but like I'm an open book and I'm willing to prove it to you. And she writes me back. And again, in my mind, she was, the girl that she was in middle school and high school. I mean, she was just perfect, like in every way. She was going to go on and be married to a doctor and the 3,500 square foot house, the white picket fence, and 2.5 kids and the minivan and the dog, like that's where she was in my mind. And that's not where she was. And she wrote me back and she said, Ryan, I'm actually.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. John from Huntsville has the grades in. He says Phil and Barry Moore get an A+ for their excellent performances, which means today's winner with a perfect A++ is obviously the king of sports, JP. Congratulations. Good luck in the football pickups tomorrow.
I will do that right now. I'll do the pick'ems right now.
Pick 'em, baby. War Eagle. I'm watching you.
Why me?
War Eagle. Anyway, all right. Hey, let me go to the phones real quick. Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, buddy, how are you doing?
I'm doing real well. It's Friday and I'm north of Nashville. So
wow. Yeah. Give the man some applause. He's moving at a lickety-split pace there. That's good. All right. Good enough. Well, we've had a full show today, man. We had the whole thing about saving kids. We did sports. We did all that. I'd love to get your thoughts on the online stuff about, saving kids and protecting kids from predators. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we got to be doing something about this. Parents are letting their kids have access to electronic things way too young.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to get your kid, well, like my granddaughter's has got like a smartwatch. It's basically it doesn't do much anything except for you can call them on it and everything.
Yeah.
And it's not got access to the internet and all that stuff. If you want to get younger kids something like that where you can get into communication with them where they can't get on internet, that's great. Because that way you can kind of track them and keep up with everything and not have to worry all the time. But But yeah, you do not need to let a small kid have a smartphone at all. At best, just a dumb phone would suffice.
Yeah, I agree with that. And my grandkids, they're young, they're 6 and 3, and they are allowed to have what's known as TV time, and it's monitored. My son and daughter-in-law, they know exactly what's on TV, and it's at a scheduled time. So even the TV is sort of monitored and doled out in doses, and they're fine. They're not hurting. They don't like miss out on things that their kids or friends are saying. Not at all. And kids will play and they will adapt, but if you give them that phone, they'll be lost in it, and there's no telling where they'll go, because literally you can get lost in there, and there's places kids do not need to be.
Oh yeah, even adults like me get lost in there. I get on some kind of stupid game or something. And it's like, where did 2 or 3 hours go to?
Yeah, like Candy Crush for the last hour and a half. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's too easy, but it's also too awful, and kids are precious. What else is on your mind, man? What are you thinking?
Well, your brethren Dale Jackson had a little thing on today, and I thought it was quite interesting.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, they did some kind of a study or like a poll, I guess, where Democrats would say how they think Republicans are, and Republicans would say how they think Democrats are, and they would answer this poll, and then they would go ask the Democrats what they thought of themselves and what the Republicans thought of themselves.
Okay.
Well, when this poll was done and everything, it turned out that this is all, best I remember of it, but around 50% of the Republicans pegged what the Democrats thought that they were, and 0% of the Democrats pegged the Republicans.
0%.
It's like 0% was, and it's like, well, they see themselves, Democrats thought we seen ourselves as, anti-Jewish, anti-gay, anti-everything, and everything. And basically what he said was that, we was worried about our kids in school and crime and everything else like that, So they basically, they've been skewed to think of us like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And have no idea what we actually think.
Well, when you live inside
But apparently
when you live inside that bubble of propaganda, and that's all you do is force feed your brain on the narrative that we're Nazis or whatever else, then I mean it takes root.
Yeah, and that's why we're having what we're having now.
Yeah.
That's why we got these kids that's going out and becoming basically Antifa or profile, what I call, because they're little fascists and they don't have a clue that they are.
Yeah.
Because they've been spoon-fed all this stuff and everything, and they hate, they think the Republicans hate them and stuff, and no, we don't hate them. We kind of feel sorry for them because they're so misled.
Well, it's a hot mess, but I'm not shocked to find that Democrats were completely lacking in self-awareness. That's typically
like
the case.
They say about Charlie Kirk, and everything.
Yes.
Yes. They've heard that he's this, that, and the other thing else. Have no clue what the man stood for, and yet that's why they hate him.
Right.
Just like the Congress in the will, like AOC did today. She's sitting there bad mouthing all this stuff and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just, I guess if you're not supposed to have, call people stupid on the House floor or whatever, but if you call somebody stupid and you're factually correct, that wouldn't be derogatory, would it?
That sounds like it'd be germane to the topic at hand. All right, brother. Hey, the music's about to play. You can be safe on the road. We'll talk at you next week. All right.
All right, Phil. You all have a good one. Have a good weekend.
You too, man. And there's the music. That means the preacher got to quit preaching. So bottom line is this, you guys. I say it every time, but I'll end the week saying it again. There are more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you soon.